Today is Wednesday, January the 8th, 2025. It's 9 a.m. Commission Secretary, please call roll.
Chairman Boatright.
Here.
Commissioner Erdman.
Here.
Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Hageman.
Here.
Commissioner Baker.
Here.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here and toughing out the weather. As we move forward with business today, I have a friendly reminder for all that we are live streaming our open meetings for the public to view from their home or office. If you are speaking, please make sure you speak into the microphone and that the microphone is on so viewers may hear what is being said. For viewers watching online, we encourage you to subscribe to MoDOT's YouTube channel at MoDOT Video for access to these meetings and more. We're going to start our meeting today with a brief safety emphasis. Evan Adrian, State Safety Coordinator, is going to share with us what we need to do in case of an emergency today. Evan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners and Director Hassinger. My name's Evan Adrian. I'm the State Safety Coordinator, and just a few safety reminders for today's meeting. In the event of a fire, the Commissioner, Director, and Commission Secretary will exit the rear of the room out the back of Conference Room 101 and to the sidewalk on Jefferson Street. The audience will walk out these doors, hang left and another immediate left, and meet out on Jefferson Street as well. If those areas are blocked, there's an alternative exit going straight down the stairs and go out the front of the building. Please walk up Jefferson Street and we'll all gather there and account for everybody. In case there is a small fire, I've asked Scott to grab the fire extinguisher behind the AV podium. And also in the event of severe weather, we'll all head down the center stairwell as far as we can to the most interior room of the building. If we must evacuate this room, please look to your left and right and see who's next to you, and we can account for them when we exit the building. If there's a medical emergency, most of the people in this room are certified in CPR, but we have Rose. She's volunteered to call 911 and lead the emergency responders into the location that's needed. Becky has volunteered to do CPR, and Eric will assist if need be. And lastly, there's an AED in the hallway just directly across from us, and Jessica will grab that if need be. A final safety reminder today. We're in January, and I'm sure some of you have seen on the television we've had some storms. But there's nearly 500,000 crashes and more than 2,000 road deaths associated with bad weather, winter storms, and sloppy road conditions. Drivers keep a few things in their car in case of road emergencies. Keep a cold weather gear in your car, such as extra food, water, emergency blankets, flashlight, ice scraper, blankets, medications, and anything else you need. Make certain your tires are properly inflated. Keep at least a half a tank of fuel in your vehicle at all times. Don't warm up your vehicles inside of an enclosed area. And lastly, don't use cruise control when you're driving on slippery snow surfaces, especially ice and snow. That concludes the safety briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Next, I need to review a few procedural items. Public comment period. I want to remind everybody that we have a public comment period. We are pleased to offer this to every Missourian who wants to come before the commission to address an issue of concern. If any of you would like to address the commission, please sign up before 9:30 a.m. A reminder that you will have 5 minutes for public comment or 10 minutes per subject. Next, I will review our abstention process. There are commissioners that, because of land ownership or business interest, or lawyers may represent clients that have either some relationship to a matter coming before the commission and may have a potential or actual conflict of interest to be considered or voted upon. The commission member will indicate if he or she chooses to abstain from voting or recuse him or herself from participating in the discussion of an agenda item. If an agenda item is divisible by contract, call, project, or like, a commissioner may specify that particular matter and then still vote on the remainder of the agenda item. This information is provided to the commission secretary by letter in advance of each meeting. Commission secretary will duly indicate the abstentions or recusals accordingly in the minutes of the meeting. Madam Secretary, the necessary letters been put together. All right, thank you. First order of business on the agenda is consideration of minutes for the regular meeting on December the 4th, 2024, and a special meeting on December the 3rd, 2024. Does anyone have any changes or additions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before we get started, I would like to just take a minute for you all that don't know that we lost a wonderful, a great 28-year employee on December 20th down in Springfield, Missouri. And I don't know who all knew Laurel McKean, but Laurel had been with MoDOT for 28 years. She was only 51 years old and she lost her battle with cancer. We saw her when we were in Springfield in October. She told me then that she was in trouble, but she was know that God had her and she was going to work through this some way or the other. So she was proud of her statewide contribution to MoDOT, and her final role, she served in many roles with MoDOT, but her final role was assistant district engineer for the Southwest District. So I've known Laurel for about 12 years. She's always just been so wonderful to work with, and I know that Stacy's got some hard shoes to fill there. So if we could, I'd like to just take for a minute and keep Laurel's family in our thoughts and prayers.
Of course. Let's take a moment of silence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. So first agenda item is the consideration of minutes for the regular meeting on December the 4th, 2024, and the special meeting on December the 3rd, 2024. Seeing no additions or subtractions, do we have a motion for approval?
Move approval as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So approved. The next business item is consideration of items on the consent agenda. Does anybody need to remove any items for discussion or abstain from any item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. Our next order of business is to receive committee and board reports. I serve on the audit committee along with Commissioner Slay and Commissioner Baker. Today, Commissioner Slay will give the report. Thank you, Commissioner Slay. All commissioners are members of the legislative committee, and the commission's chair and vice chairs serve as co-chairs of the legislative committee. Commissioner Erdman will give today's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as fate would have it, we're meeting today on the first day of the 103rd General Assembly, who will convene at noon today. There will be, of course, a lot of ceremonial activities over at the Capitol today as both House and Senate members are sworn into office. So this will be a busy day for the next couple weeks as preparations continue for the swearing in of statewide officials, including our next governor, Mike Kehoe. To date, over 200 of the 1,300 legislative proposals pre-filed this session will impact transportation. While it's hard to say what transportation initiatives will be discussed during the session, the commission and departments stand ready to assist and provide information to any and all elected officials who wish to advance transportation conversation in Missouri. In the meantime, and in preparation for the session, we delivered the 2024 annual report to the members of the General Assembly. This report is required by state law and includes a copy of MoDOT's annual comprehensive financial report, its 2024 annual report, which consists of the Citizen's Guide to Transportation Funding and a financial snapshot of MoDOT's results. As outlined in state statute, Director Hassinger will have the opportunity to appear before the Joint Committee on Transportation to present the report to its members at a time and place yet to be determined. As more information on legislative activity is forthcoming in the days and weeks ahead, We'll keep you advised. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Erdman. Commissioner Smith serves as president of the MTFC, and Commissioners Erdman and Baker are board members. Commissioner Smith will provide today's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is no report this month. Our next MTFC meeting is scheduled for February 25th, or February 5th of 2025. Man, that's hard to say, but that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioners Erdman, Hegeman, and I serve on the Emperor's Board. Today, Commissioner Erdman will provide the report.
Thank you. The Emperor's Governance Committee meeting was held on December 9th. At this meeting, the committee reviewed several governance policies of the full board. There were no specific actions taken, and the next board meeting is scheduled for February 21, 2025.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I will give today's report on the Missouri Coalition for Roadway Safety Executive Committee. With the start of the new year, we have an update. On the end of the year traffic fatalities in Missouri. As of Friday, January the 3rd, preliminary data indicates 942 traffic fatalities in Missouri traffic crashes in 2024. This is a 5% decrease from 2023 and the second year in a row which traffic fatalities in Missouri have decreased. One positive I would like to highlight is that the Missouri State Highway Patrol has reported 0 traffic fatalities during the New Year's holidays this year. While we are encouraged by the progress, the loss of life in Missouri roads remains substantial, with more than 900 people losing their lives in each of the past 5 years. The Missouri Coalition for Roadway Safety Executive Committee will meet later this afternoon, where we will be taking a closer look at the safety trends in 2024, opportunities for improvement in 2025, and updates to the state's strategic highway safety plan. As always, we encourage everyone to do their part by committing to 2 simple actions: buckle up and phone down. This concludes my report. The next item on the agenda is MoDOT Director Report. Ed, the floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Chairman, Commissioners. I have some things to share with you this morning. First of all, you may have noticed that the seating arrangement is a little different this morning. So I'd like to ask Eric to step up to the podium there. I'm pleased to announce that Eric Schrader is the department's new Deputy Director and Chief Engineer. Eric's been with the department for 32 years, including the last 6 as our Assistant Chief Engineer. He started his career in '92 working in the Central District. He served as the Central District's maintenance engineer. In 2013, he took on a statewide role as our state design engineer. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Missouri and is a registered professional engineer. Eric's experience is going to be critical as we guide the department, directing the team as we deliver our largest construction program in MoDOT's history. And we focus on improving the operations of our team overall and doing that to improve overall customer service. So please join me in congratulating Eric on his new.
Thank you very much, Ed, for the kind words, and look forward to continuing working with the commission and our team here at MoDOT. Part of stepping up to this role is knowing that we have a great team here. And over my career, that's one of the most important things to me, is being able to do this work with a great team of people who are really dedicated to public service in all facets of what we do, from the folks that are still plowing snow this morning to the team that's working on the next projects to be set up for letting. So I really look forward to this challenge, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
You know, Eric has taken on the role I used to have, so he's got some things he's got to clean up, right? That'll be his biggest challenge, probably. And second, I'm honored to announce that Pam Parlin is the department's new governmental relations director. She's also still serving as the secretary to the commission as we speak, but Pam's been with the department for 28 years, including 6 in the chief's counsel's office, 5 years in governmental relations division before she took on the role as commission secretary in 2007. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from the University of Missouri. In addition to her various responsibilities as Commission Secretary, Pam also led the effort to automate the contract process that we use, that we compile all of the various contracts that we develop and made that electronic. So it's saved all kinds of time and money and really made our process more streamlined. Definitely she has made the commission, keeping track of the commission policies and all of the things that you all do very streamlined. And of course, she regularly attends our legislative committee hearings, has met with lawmakers on behalf of the department and advocating for the commission's legislative agenda. She's worked along dozens, I think dozens literally, of commissioners over her time as commission secretary, as well as her experience as a legislative liaison makes her uniquely qualified for this role. So I'm thrilled that Pam is back in governmental relations, experience and leadership, industry knowledge and awareness. She'll do a great job and put us forward in that arena. So please join me in congratulating Pam on her career. And then one leadership change that I do want to recognize, and we'll do the more formal thing when we can get that done, but Paula Goff has announced that she is retiring at the end of this month. So Paula has been a fearless leader in our Northeast district for 18 years. Oh, wow. So I think of the current group in the modern era, kind of like we talk about Commissioner Smith, I think she's the longest serving district engineer in the modern era. So Paula, your leadership has been greatly appreciated, and thank you very much. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about a few other things. Early in December, the 26th annual AGC MoDOT Co-op meeting was held down at the Lake of the Ozarks. We did that on December 5th and 6th. And it really is a thing that's grown over the last 26 years. It's hard to believe it's been going on that long, to facilitate the discussion between public and private sector partnership, to look at how we can be more innovative, share best practices, discuss what's coming next with our projects, and most importantly, to foster a partnering relationship between us and our private sector partners. So during our time of unprecedented construction work, it's going to be critical that that relationship continues and we build on that, as really the MoDOT private sector partnership is the biggest longest going and biggest public-private partnership that anybody can think of. We've been doing this for 100 years, and we rely on the private sector to execute the work that we develop. So we were honored to have comments by Governor-elect Mike Kehoe. He spoke on the second morning of the meeting, talked about the importance of transportation and economic development in Missouri. And if you can see the slide, this next slide that they're going to put up, this was very well attended. We had a crowd, I think, over 500 folks, 560, about 130 MoDOT folks, and the rest were from the industry and other partners. So I think it's just a positive step in this continued partnership. So we were thrilled to participate in that. On another positive note, we had the ribbon cutting ceremony on December 10th to celebrate the new Lance Corporal Leon DeRapp's Interstate 70 Missouri River Bridge at Roachport. I wanted to play a short video from that event that kind of highlights what happened. So we can roll the video.
One thing I want to talk about today is what it takes, how big thought becomes reality. 3 key things to make this happen. Number 1, leadership. Number 2, the investment and the funding to get it done. And number 3 is delivery. I'll start with delivery. We're fortunate in this state to have a world-class MoDOT team that can execute this type of work. We're also blessed to have the engineering consultants and the contracting community that just absolutely knows how to get work done in the state. Second, I want to talk about the investment. The Focus on Bridge program, Buck O'Neill Bridge that we just had a ribbon cutting for, and then this Lance Corporal Leon Durap's Memorial Bridge. These are all examples that have paved the way for the big investment that we have on this I-70 corridor. And lastly, I want to talk about leadership, and specifically a visionary. And to my left here, we have Governor Parson. This man from day one had laser focus on infrastructure and workforce development for this state. You fast forward to today, he set clear expectations, he thought big, and he truly cares about the future of Missouri.
Infrastructure and workforce development is not about politics. It's about making it better for the next generations. And what we're here today, you're going to see history be made for the next 100 years before we have to talk about this bridge again.
When I was on the Highway Commission from 05 to 10, we wanted to get this bridge built, but quite frankly, there was no way to find the resources and the innovation to get it done. It's sorely needed. It's part of an incredible corridor, as Chairman Boatwright said, across our state. It will lead to incredible opportunities for families all across Missouri. And you just don't realize what a key piece this is going to be to what our infrastructure system looks like in the future.
This does not happen without the partnerships and the collaboration between federal, state, and local entities. We don't get to come to a project like this without everybody coming together to make this happen. And so I want to say thank you.
So you've already heard about all of the work that had to be done to coordinate funding and to get cooperation. But there's one more piece of the puzzle that had to happen to make this happen. And that was a team of folks that came together to actually build this bridge. And I'll have to say they did it under pretty interesting circumstances. We had high water, we had low water, we had a wildfire that shut down construction. So through all of that, what a talented team it took to bring this to where we are today.
So that was a pretty good event. It's pretty rare that you get a sitting governor, a governor-elect, and come together to talk about something that we've worked on for a long time. So the new eastbound I-70 bridge opened to traffic on December 20th, 10 days later. It was a $220 million project that began in early 2022. And as was mentioned, the project really came together because of a lot of players bringing their time, talent, and money to the table. But we had funding from sources from the city of Boonville, the city of Columbia, Boone County, Cooper County, and then an $81 million infra grant was secured with the assistance of Congressman Sam Graves. It was a little bit cold on that day, but I think everybody's heart was warm because of what we were doing. And I think it was pretty rare that actually a governor got to do the actual groundbreaking and the ribbon cutting of a major bridge, and it wouldn't happen without his commitment to transportation and infrastructure. So we are really thrilled with that. And it really was kind of, I think, one of the groundbreaking pieces that led to a lot of the other things that we talk about of the I-70 3 lanes across the state. And remember, that was designed to carry 3 lanes each direction before there was any idea that we really could do that across the state. So good vision by the folks that were working on that, and Michelle and your team. Definitely Eric and his team coordinated with that on the I-70 project. And we had a lot of folks that it took to make that happen. So we were also joined, I don't know if you noticed, but Commissioner Smith was with us that day. Waters and Brian Treese. So congratulations to the whole MoDOT team that made that happen. And next I was going to talk about, I think Commissioner Smith said it better than I could have said it, but we did lose one of our leaders, Laurel McKean, She was a really valued member of our team and had worked in multiple places around the state in operations. And I'll just tell you the thing I remember about Laurel is we had tried for years and years to get an automated fuel system at MoDOT, and it failed, I think, maybe 3 times. And finally, we said, we got to find somebody that can bring this all together, and Laurel stepped up and did it. And while that may seem like a really small thing, it really kind of shows kind of how she operated and what kind of a person she was about bringing people together, and just her mindset and positive attitude. So we are really kind of all hurting with Laurel's, leaving. So, but I think Commissioner Smith said it about as well as it could be said. So thank you, Commissioner Smith, for doing that. So I think I'm going to talk a little bit about our winter response. We're right in the middle of it still, but I think it's just appropriate as we're here today gathered that we talk about what we're doing with winter storms. I think this storm has hit the state with, I think, every type of precipitation that we could have had all at once, changed over time as it moved through the state. And now we're dealing with bitter cold temperatures. So this is kind of the storm that tests you. I think the first thing I want to do is we put out some pretty strong messages to the public to stay off the roads. And the first thing I want to do is thank the public for heeding those warnings and really making it so much easier for our team and the rest of our partners to get the work done. And then the partnership that we have is pretty amazing when you see it in action. Our partners at SEMA, the Department of Public Safety, in this case, the governor activated the Missouri National Guard to help out with wellness checks, and that took a huge burden off of the Highway Patrol. And then, of course, our partners at the Highway Patrol that are out there with us every day trying to fight these storms. So that coordination was amazing. And really want to thank all of our partners and our team at MoDOT for what they're doing. This was a challenging storm, and our team showed up every day. We're in, I don't even know exactly what operational period we're in, but it's been a lot of 12-hour shifts, day after day after day, and our team shows up every day to do that. So the other thing that I wanted to do is thank Becky Almeroth. She's our Chief Safety and Operations Officer. She's the director of the orchestra that makes this thing happen. And I wanted to bring Becky up to give you a little flavor of a little more of the detail of what went on and what's still going on as we're wrapping this one up.
Thank you, Director. Ironic, this is operational period number 11, but it's also number 1 for the next storm. So we'd hope we'd add a little bit of break, but we do still have 3 districts that have full crews that are still doing the 12-hour shifts, including resources that have been sent from the other districts that were done. Some strike teams that have gone up into those districts. So just a tremendous amount of work and hours, and share a little bit more with you about that in a minute, how many hours we put in. As the director mentioned, this was a very challenging storm. North of I-70, the state received at least 8 inches to a foot. In some areas, I think some of our winters hit 18 to 19 inches. That's just a tremendous, tremendous amount of snow. In central Missouri and to the south, we had major ice, lots of sleet, lots of downed trees, snow on top of that, you name it, and Mother Nature gave it to us this time. I even got to witness walking from my car while I was out at SEMA, a flash of lightning, and it was thunder sleet. That was almost hit my knees. Like, what the heck was that? As the director mentioned, we can't thank the public enough for heeding that warning, and our partners that also put out that very strong message. I knew we would get, probably 75 to 80% of the traffic off the roadway. The traffic volumes on that Sunday morning were only 16% of what they normally are. And I guarantee a lot of that traffic were our snowplow operators, the tow truck drivers, National Guard, Highway Patrol. We added a lot to that amount. So the public really did probably drop their travel by about 90%. That's just incredible, giving us the room to work. And that really helped our response, especially on the interstates and the major roads, and helped us keep those Missourians safe. And a storm like this, we should have had multiple fatalities, but That was a testament to the Missourians really doing and stepping up to do their part to keep everybody safe. Again, our coordinated effort with SEMA and the patrol and the governor's activation of the National Guard was critical as we worked together to respond to major incidents on the highways and share the same warnings to the public. The National Guard in particular, just doing some of those tasks that MoDOT would normally need to do, the wellness checks. They stepped up and brought medical professionals to the hospitals that couldn't make it in. They check on stranded motorists, got people to safety or to warm shelters and locations. They responded to heart attacks of people that were stuck in those lines of traffic if a tractor trailer jackknife. So, and they're still in the state today doing some cut and toss crews, trying to get some of the power back on in the southern part. They received, we're hearing in some of those areas like Perryville, an inch of ice. That's just catastrophic ice, and getting people those services back on when it's this bitterly cold. We have staffed our emergency operations center around the clock for 4 days, going on day number 5. We had staff across the state working in our traffic transportation management centers and handling customer calls. On Monday alone, we received more than 3,000 calls. That's 10 times what we would typically get in a business day. So tremendous. Those phone operators, I know the phone didn't get cold at all. They were on it just continuously taking those calls. And our crews in the plow work tirelessly in very challenging conditions. Many of them have worked 4 or 5 12-hour shifts, and they're still continuing. We also had more than 100 team members go to other parts of the state. Those 100 team members, those are the ones that left their homes, packed a bag, and stayed in a hotel. That doesn't count the ones that shifted into the other districts, but 100 left their families, went to other parts of the state, especially to the north to assist with the heavy snows. And then just some spectacular numbers. Our totals, I checked again this morning, and as of this morning, our crews have worked almost 100,000 hours, and they're still going. We've driven more than 1.3 million miles for this storm, and we've used approximately 31,000 tons of salt. So we are still calculating what this storm will cost, but right now this response is at $11.5 million. Missouri had a lot of national news coverage for this one over the weekend, which showed positively how MoDOT responded. I have a short clip I'd like to share with you.
So we don't see a lot of road traffic, and even in these other images, just a few cars here and there. I imagine you're asking people, you know, except for extenuating circumstances, to just simply stay off the roads?
Absolutely, and that really is the key component. With the severity of this storm, things should not be going this well, but we put out some really strong messaging along with the Missouri National Guard, the Highway Patrol, SEMA, and the governor's office, and the motorists are really staying home and giving us room to do our work, and that is the key to the success right now.
Okay, Jill, do you have any reminders or anything to say to people traveling out on the roads?
Yeah, we always say, you know, don't crowd the plow. Today, during the storm, people are being really good about staying back and giving us room to work. So just continue to do that and stay home if you can. And then as we work towards finishing the storm, it's usually when people get a little worse about crowding up on us. So remember, you know, even if there's one lane open, to go ahead and stay back and don't crowd us and give us room to work.
That second video you saw of Jill Barras, she's one of our area engineers in the Kansas City district. She's not required to plow. She volunteers. It really is. And we have quite a few volunteers, those that aren't required, that typically design projects and work with the public and put out that production, that step up whenever the snow hits. So very proud of those volunteers. Really appreciate the one team effort. Want to kind of show an example of what we had. This was Monday morning. This is the efforts. We put out that message through our traveler information map to the public so they know whether to travel or not. This first shot is 5 a.m. Monday morning. You can see the majority of the state is purple, which is covered. And then just a short 10 hours later, Monday afternoon, the picture on the right is how much progress had been made. So still mostly covered, those blues, but those roads are passable. The lighter blues are mostly clear. So tremendous amount of progress made in that one day, significantly less purple. So that's great progress. I am proud and sincerely thankful to our MoDOT team members and our partner for making this a successful event. I'll answer any questions that you have.
Becky, I just want to say thank you. You probably didn't know, but you had several commissioners on many of the calls that were going on during these operational periods. And I just want to tell you how impressive it is to see the level of professionalism, the level of care, and just the thought that goes into how we're structured throughout the state to handle an event like this. Having National Weather Service give us exactly what they're seeing on a minute-by-minute basis is tremendous. Having SEMA, the Highway Patrol, the National Guard to assist, the entire event, really impressive. I think it does, one thing in my mind, and we talked about this yesterday and closed on the equipment side, we got to make sure we're taking care of our equipment, because events like this, it gets critical. We have trucks down and not operating. And if you get behind in a snow event like this, you can't catch back up. So just the entire effort was just really impressive. And I appreciate you, the entire team. I'm glad you showed the picture of the area engineer stepping up and running a plow truck. There's more than just her that does that statewide. So, I mean, just very proud of the effort and the work that happened during the snow event. So thank you.
I appreciate that. National Weather Service, you mentioned they're a tremendous partner. They jump on all of our situational awareness calls, but little known to everybody, we had one of their top meteorologists actually embedded in SEMA this time. So Kevin Deitch from National Weather Service, just a wealth of information, spot on with the forecast. And you mentioned our equipment. We have equipment operators to get that snow equipment ready. They start working 2 or 3 days before the storm, and they're still repairing things. So they probably do longer shifts than anybody out there. So a huge shout out to them as well. I appreciate it.
You know, the other big takeaway that I had, when you look statewide, you talked about it, but I just want to highlight this. You know, in the southeast portion of the state, we had ice. And as you move to the northwest, you had a combination of ice and snow, and you can't handle that the exact same way. And it blows my mind how well the folks on the ground know the business and have an understanding of what can be done ahead of time with the salt that's put down, what mix is going to be used, how it's utilized. All of those things are just extremely impressive. And ultimately, you end up with what we did, which was a roadway back open. We did have the brief closure on I-29 overnight, but if you look at our surrounding states, Kansas to the west was closed down every state route. And on the east side, in Illinois and Indiana, I-70 was closed. So thank you to the team. Appreciate all of the sacrifices that went into making this happen. And as you pointed out earlier, we're in operational session 1 on the next storm that's coming in Friday. So not going to get much of a break. We're jumping right back in. So just make sure that you guys are checking on the team members and ensure that everybody's safe and gets through this next storm as well. But thank you again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to add a little bit. Thank you. So impressive based on my personal experience, what I saw. And also doing this, average Missourian has absolutely no idea of the magnitude of the challenge and what it takes to get it done. There's a high level of expectation, which you met. And it's under very, very difficult circumstances. So certainly you and your team have a lot to be proud of in terms of what you're able to do and what you accomplished. And people of St. Louis are tremendously served by the talent of this organization.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So I think you can see that it's really an all hands on deck. Most of our divisions are engaged, all of our districts, and it takes an army to get this done and a lot of partners. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Smith.
I just want to thank Ed for the update. Two things. It was great to celebrate the I-70 Roachport Bridge with both the governor and the governor-elect. That's pretty neat to have both of them there. And as the chairman said, great job, Becky, to you and your team. We were one of those that got the ice, and then we got about 4 inches of snow on it. So they did a great job. I'm so proud. I'm sitting here in the project office now and of the job that the team did, not only right here in Henry County, but across the state. It was really good. So appreciate all those guys. I'm glad and hope and pray that everybody gets home safe.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. So moving on to the next section of presentations, we're going to move into MoDOT presentations. The next item on the agenda, Danica Stovall-Taylor, Assistant State Design Engineer, will present bids for our consideration.
Chairman Boatright, Commissioners, and Director. For the December 13th, 2024 bid opening, we received 67 bids on 20 calls and have the following recommendations. To award all calls to the lowest responsible bidder, except for calls F01 and F05 located in St. Louis District, and call G02 located in Southwest District. We recommend rejection of call F01 due to deficient bidding documents per section 102.15B of the Missouri Standard Specification for Highway Construction. We recommend rejection of call F05 due to excessive bids per section 102.15A of the Missouri Standard Specification for Highway Construction. Also, we recommend award of call G02 be contingent upon the transfer of funds for the SRF I-44 Improvement Fund through the Office of Administration. Those are our recommendations.
Thank you, Danica. Any questions, comments?
I move that we approve the bids.
Motion to approve. We have a second.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Danica, do you have a budget update?
Yes. For today's awards, we have a total of 124.1 million, which is 11.9 million under budget. This does include the first Ford 44 project that's funded through the general revenue. Today's awards result in a state fiscal year 2025 award to date of $1.6 billion, which is a savings of 4.2% or 72.2 million under budget on a $1.7 billion worth of work.
That's great news. That is great news. Vice Chair,
Yeah, thank you for the report. Unprecedented amount of work underway. Amazing that we can oversee so much work with the limited resources we have. Congratulations to the team and keep bringing them and let's keep going. The one thing I wanted to call out for special recognition is the I-44. We're starting the I-44 project today, and that's worth taking a moment to celebrate because like I-70, I-44 is in bad need of improvement, and we've launched that today. For the public listening in, this follows the model of the I-70 funding program, which was very innovative and very, very smart, designed in partnership with the Missouri General Assembly and the governor. And it allows for general revenue and bonding funds to go to the Office of Administration and then be held until we are ready to let contracts, as we did today. And then those funds move into the State Road Fund to be used to conduct and complete the project. And this has been a very good thing for Missouri. It follows a very successful model that was set with I-70. And I hope Missourians across the state listening in today know that today we have expanded the effort by applying this same approach to I-44, every bit as important as I-70 and now underway.
Vice Chair, I appreciate you pointing that out. I want to point this out, and we've tried to shed light on this every time it's come up. That 44 funding that was put out today, a portion of it was signed into law just this past legislative session. So July, August timeframe signed into law. And then fast forward to January, it's out the door. That speaks volumes to what we're doing here in Missouri. That quick to get to a project really makes the difference on where we are today in this state, where we have the trust of the General Assembly to do this type of work. And I'm just so proud of the team for delivering. I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but it's truly the most important thing that we can do overall is deliver. And this team does it day in, day out. So proud of this team. Director, any comments from you? Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, Danica, thank you for your report. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Brenda Morris, Chief Financial Officer, will present an update on MoDOT's financial forecast. Brenda, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Director Hassinger. Today, I'll be discussing the first step in our process for developing our spending plans for the department. On an annual basis, we prepare a financial forecast. The forecast is an estimate of what revenues and expenditures we anticipate having. This forecast covers a 5-year rolling time frame. The forecast I'm discussing today covers fiscal years 2026 through 2030 and only covers revenues, operating expenditures, and capital investments for roads and bridges. We start with the actual cash balance at the end of fiscal year 2024. For our projections, we use historical information and also information from third-party sources. The information in the financial forecast is then used to develop the appropriation submission and the department's allocation of resources for the operating budget, as well as the targets that are provided to our planning partners in the development of the statewide transportation improvement program, or the STIP. We'll be discussing some of the unique characteristics of this forecast. The last couple of years has resulted in additional revenue and bond proceeds being part of the available resources the department has. Most of these come in the form of one-time funding. I'd like to touch briefly on those items. First, during the 2023 session, the governor and the General Assembly approved $2.8 billion in resources to fund the Improve I-70 program. $1.4 billion comes in the form of bond proceeds. The first issuance was conducted in November of 2023 in the amount of $390.2 million. We anticipate 2 more issuances in fiscal years 2026 and 2028. The other $1.4 billion comes in the form of cash. The general revenue was deposited into a fund held by the Office of Administration, and the funds will be transferred into the State Road Fund as the commission enters into contracts. That's the action you just took. Also, $136 million in general revenue will be appropriated annually for debt service associated with the bonds. Second, during last year's session, the governor and the General Assembly followed the same model that they used for the Improve I-70 program and appropriated $577.5 million for the Forward 44 program. Of the total amount, $213.75 million of general revenue gets deposited into a fund held by the Office of Administration, and the funds will be transferred into the State Road Fund as the commission enters into a contracts. We actually had a transfer for both of the programs today. There is an additional $363.75 million of bonding authority was approved with debt service to be paid from general revenue. The bond proceeds are not to exceed $363.75 million. Annual debt service is not to exceed $44 million, and the term of any bonds issued should not exceed 10 years. During the last 2 sessions, in addition to the funding for the Improve I-70 program and the Forward 44 program, the General Assembly designated and funded several other projects with general revenue or budget stabilization funds. These projects include, but not limited to, low volume minor roads and improvements on US 65, US 67, and Interstate 49. Lastly, while not revenue, bond proceeds are an additional resource. This forecast includes Amendment 3 bond issuances in 2026, 2028, and 2030 to utilize all the revenue deposited into the State Road Bond Fund. We're going to talk about each of the three primary state revenue sources. On each of these graphs, we'll show the actual revenues from 2013 through 2024, and then compare the forecast we're presenting today to the forecast that we from last year. The blue line is the actuals, the red line is last year's forecast, and the green line is this year's forecast. For motor fuel taxes, excluding Senate Bill 262, fiscal year 24 actuals were 2.6 million higher than we projected. As you can see in the graph, motor fuel taxes were a bit volatile from 2020 to 2023, but seems to have started leveling off in 2024. Moving forward, we believe vehicles with greater fuel economy and those fueled by alternative fuels will offset any increases in vehicle miles traveled. This forecast includes an annual decline of 0.2% for 2025 and beyond. The overall impact is 15.6 million more in this forecast compared to last year's. Senate Bill 262, passed by the General Assembly in fiscal year 21 and signed into law by the governor in July of 2021, increases the motor fuel tax by 12.5 cents over 5 years, 2.5 cents per year. The last increase will occur July 1st of 2025. This graph shows the projections related to Senate Bill 262 motor fuel taxes. Similar assumptions were made for this revenue source as the rest of motor fuel taxes. This slide shows the revenue net of refunds and also net of the constitutional distribution to cities and counties. Let's talk a little bit more about the assumptions made for those refunds. Based on actual refunds, we modified the assumption related to refunds to 0.5% of taxes collected for fiscal year 2025 and beyond. Previously, we used 1%. The overall impact comparing last year's forecast to this year's forecast is 8.8 million for Senate Bill 262 motor fuel taxes. For motor vehicle sales tax, actuals were 0.4 million more than projected, so very close to what we projected last year. People continue to purchase vehicles. For this forecast, we started with fiscal year 2024 actuals and grew them 3% for fiscal year 2025 and beyond. This is the same assumption as we used last year. And you can see in the graph that last year's forecast and this year's forecast are almost on top of each other. The overall impact is 1.9 million more in this forecast compared to last year's. As you can see in this chart, motor vehicle and driver's license fees were 22.1 million less than what was projected in 2024. For this reason, for this year's forecast, we started with a 4-year average. We're trying to smooth out that volatility that was there between 2020 and 2024. So the actuals we started with was 322.1 million. We're projecting 1.5% growth rate for fiscal year 2025 and beyond, which is the same as last year. That growth rate is the same. The overall impact is 66.3 million less in this forecast compared to last year's forecast. In this graph, we compare how the state revenue projection for all state revenues in this forecast compared to those from last year's. The red line represents last year's forecast. The blue line is this year's forecast. In addition to the 3 primary revenue sources that we just discussed in detail, this chart also includes interest that we earn on deposits made with the state treasury, as well as miscellaneous revenue. Miscellaneous revenue includes the sale of excess property, the sale of used equipment, as well as reimbursements from entities that we do joint projects with. So think about the MoDOT cost share program. The difference between the 2 lines is 5.4 million more. So very close to what we estimated last year. Federal revenue includes the federal funds for our construction projects, as well as federal funds we receive for preventive maintenance, design work, construction engineering, statewide planning and research reimbursements, and those federal funds that are passed on to local entities. Again, we're showing a comparison between this year's forecast and last year's forecast. That comparison shows the timing of federal funding changes a little bit. And overall, this forecast contains 91.1 million more federal funds than last year's forecast. This graph shows the picture for all resources available for state revenues, federal revenues, and Amendment 3 bond proceeds. This graph does not include the one-time funding made available by the governor and General Assembly, so the Improve I-70 program, Forward 44 program, and the General Assembly designated and funded projects. This year's forecast has 335.1 million more in resources available than the previous year's forecast. The major difference is the higher amounts and timing of Amendment 3 bond issuances. In this graph, we include all revenues and disbursements except those one-time funding items that we've just discussed. The red line summarizes the revenues, the blue line shows the disbursements, and the green line shows the cash balance of the State Road Fund. I want to highlight a couple of items that have been included as part of disbursements. Disbursements include the items approved by the Commission as part of the fiscal year 2026 budget submission. Those include 13.6 million. I'm getting the tickle, excuse me. $13.6 million to continue implementing the market plan and provide tenure and performance-based increases. $30.7 million to hire an additional 309 employees, including predominantly approximately 250 safety and operations employees. $22.6 million for various roadside contracts, $17 million for maintenance supplies, roadway improvements, and non-fleet equipment, and $15 million for facility improvements related to mechanical systems. In addition, the following items have also been included and will be used as a starting point for future budget authorizations. A 2% cost of living adjustment in fiscal years 2027 and beyond. Medical benefits include an 8% increase for 2026 and beyond, and a 2.5% growth rate for expense and equipment in fiscal year 2027 and beyond. This chart also includes the disbursements for the construction program. We're going to go into that in a little more detail in just a minute. Overall, disbursements decreased $57.8 million in this forecast compared to last year's forecast. The main reason for the decrease is personal services and related fringe benefits have not increased quite as quickly as we predicted in the previous forecast. In order to maximize the investment level, the forecast relies on deficit spending. The amount being dispersed is greater than the revenue coming in. The cash balance in the State Road Fund is expected to climb from $862.4 million at the end of fiscal year 2025 to $214.9 million at the end of fiscal year 2031. The average deficit spending for the 2025 through 2031 time period totals $187.4 million a year. We need to maintain an adequate balance in the State Road Fund to respond to fluctuations in receipts and disbursements and for unanticipated expenditures like disasters. This slide shows the additional investment for the Improve I-70 program, the Forward 44 program, and the General Assembly designated and funded projects. This includes any bond issuances for those programs and the cashing out of any of the awards made for these projects. This slide shows a comparison of all contractor awards for this forecast compared to the previous forecast. This includes all the road and bridge funding. When comparing the two forecasts shown on the graph, the amounts are $682.6 million more for including the Forward 44 program and the General Assembly designated and funded projects. Just a reminder, contractor awards is the amount that gets included in the STIP and is the amount identified at the beginning of the project. For the forecast, we identify when those awards will actually result in cash out the door. The contractor payments will lag slightly behind the contractor awards. This slide shows a comparison of contractor payments from last year's forecast to this year's forecast. Taking a little bit different look, this pie chart shows where all the funding included in the forecast comes from. By far, the largest portion is federal funds at 34%. Of the three primary revenue sources, motor fuel tax provides the most at 19%. And you can see that huge investment of other state resources with the yellow slice at 16%. This distribution is very similar to last year. Here is a pie chart that shows the distribution of our disbursements. The largest portion is for the construction program at 42%. The next largest category is operating budget, which includes all the State Road Fund, personal service, fringe benefit, and expense and equipment expenditures. This is our investment in the customer service we provide to Missourians. Again, you can see that yellow wedge at 17% from other state resources. Some of the highway user fees are appropriated to two other state agencies, that is the Department of Revenue and the Missouri State Highway Patrol, in accordance with the Constitution, that is at 9%. And lastly, debt service at 7%. The distribution is similar to last year. The financial forecast is just one piece of the puzzle. As mentioned earlier, the information in the financial forecast provides the basis for the development of the targets used to select projects for the STIP and to develop the department's spending plans. While each serves a different purpose, they are interconnected. We are not asking for any approvals today, but as the other items, the STIP as budgets are prepared and presented to the commission, we'll seek your approval at that time. Are there any questions?
Any questions or comments for Brenda?
I have a comment. Thank you so much, you and your team, for all the important work that you do behind the scenes, generally in terms of management and addressing the financial aspects of this organization, which are tremendous. They're people of Missouri that we all work for and represent. Don't know all this information generally, but they benefit by the money being spent properly and being managed in an appropriate way. And the year that I've been on this organization, I've been extremely impressed with your organization and the management of the money and keeping track of how it's being spent and where it goes, and making sure that the organization is run in a fiscal responsible way. So I want to thank you and Jane. Thanks for the update, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much for those kind words. I do have a fabulous team and I get the privilege of working with them every day. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Slay. Commissioner Hageman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brenda, I too appreciate your work on this, putting this together. But I also would like to express my appreciation to our friends in the General Assembly, Chairman Smith and Appropriation Chairman Lincoln Huff, along with the governor's office and all of our legislative friends, have recognized that investment in this infrastructure is very important, and they took general revenue money to invest in that will serve the state of Missouri for generations. And I appreciate their forethought, their foresight in appropriating and trusting us to utilize, because a big portion of this, big wedge of that pie was the General Assembly projects, and really do appreciate it. We really want to deliver on that. Also want to thank our federal delegation for their support in the state of Missouri, helping us in that regard, and in particular, Congressman Graves and his leadership on the Transportation Committee. Really appreciate it. Our friends out there that help us serve the people of the state of Missouri. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hageman.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Let me echo what Commissioner Hageman just said. Doing a great job. Two things I want to call out in this that I think really merit clear understanding. The first has to do with the bond issuances. Many Missourians, like me, are always nervous about debt. And I think there's not a person in the room or on the meeting today who doesn't think about debt. And I want to assure everyone that we have been exceedingly careful about debt. I go back to the meetings when we first talked about the financing of the I-70 program, and we made some decisions that really protect against risk on taking on too much debt. Very simply stated, the debt that we were taking on for I-70 and for I-44, those debt payments are covered by general revenue appropriations from the legislature, which Commissioner Hageman just mentioned. And they come into the Office of Administration and then ultimately into the road fund to handle the debt. And that's a good thing, because what we did there that the public needs to understand is that that's a very short-term debt. That's, I believe, 3 years. And so for the average Missourian, we're not issuing the next tranche until we've paid off the first tranche. So when the first 3-year term of debt is paid off, then we go to the next one, and so on and so forth. This so-called accelerated amortization was kind of a breakthrough, and I think it merits understanding and being noted. And it's how we're responsibly handling that. So I just felt like that's important to kind of be reminded that this debt that we're taking on is short-term and we're managing it very responsibly. The second thing I want to observe is what this shows to me is the ongoing critical importance of funding our operations. And we know from the winter event that we've just had how critically important that is. And the important thing for the public to understand about that is we're not asking the General Assembly for those operating funds for the highway system. Those come out of the road fund. And while we may ask for authorization for more people to be hired and to retain our existing people, that money comes out of the road fund, is funded by the gas tax and other revenue sources on the road fund. And so it's important to understand that when we seek authorization for additional personnel, it's so that we can handle a snow event. We're not asking for additional general revenue money. We're using the money in the road fund. And if we learn nothing else this week, it's that how important those fully funding that operating team is. Without that, we don't have the response that we had in a major winter event. So those are the two things I want to observe. Appreciate your indulging me with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Erdman. I have nothing to add to that. My goodness, you three are on top of it. Director, anything to add?
Just a couple of things. So this sets the foundation for the really hard work we do to prepare our operating budget and our STIP. And you're going to hear more about that in the coming months, starting this month. But also, I think the team that did the financial forecasting, if you looked at the pandemic years, that created a lot of consternation for our folks because things were pretty volatile. And I think they've done a really good job of trying to figure out what that looks like. And then the last thing that I would just point out, if you look at the kind of the graph on motor fuel, we've talked about it becoming a declining revenue source for a lot of years. And it really hasn't happened. A lot during the pandemic kind of upset that curve. But I think we're in this place now that with the fuel efficiency of cars and trucks and alternative fuels, that is something we all have to keep our eye on because that is the biggest chunk of state revenue. And we need to be starting the discussion about how do we replace that or change that to make sure that we have a sustainable revenue source going forward. The good news is the sale of motor vehicles, that revenue source continues to climb, but we put them all together and that's just something, you know, with all the discussion about general revenue and our forecasts show more money than we've ever had. That's just a note of caution that we all need to be aware of. It's not something we need to address today, but it's something we need to start talking about and making sure we have a plan to do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Director. Next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Lance Taylor, Transportation Planning Director, will present on MoDOT's statewide transportation improvement program. Lance?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director Hassinger. I appreciate the opportunity to come today and provide an update on the statewide transportation program development. Transportation planning is very fortunate to be involved in a broad array of responsibilities throughout MoDOT. That gives us the opportunity to be involved in organizationally impactful efforts. And the statewide transportation improvement program, or the STIP, is probably the most important activity that transportation planning is involved in. For my group, that's driven by Amy Binkley and her team in statewide programming, but it's really a total team effort for the organization. It involves multiple divisions. It involves all of the districts. The district efforts are really led by the district planning managers. They do honestly a lot of the heavy lifting in having those hard conversations about what we can and can't move forward, working with our planning partners. kind of leading that effort to bring together a lot of information. They rely heavily on the district design teams, the same teams that are trying to deliver the projects that we've already added to the SIP are also coming up with how do they move a need into a solution that can be delivered as a project. So we're just very thankful across the organization for all of the hard work and effort by staff to help deliver the STIP. At the same time that we deliver the STIP, we also are responsible to deliver, to work with our partners to help deliver and get approved other federally required products, such as their transportation improvement programs. Brittany O'Connor, Mike Henderson, Zeke Paul work directly with the districts, work with our planning partners to be able to get those, shepherd those through the process so that those two, the TIPs and the STIPs work in concert so we can deliver that work within those regions. Here in Missouri, we use the planning framework. The planning framework is a nationally recognized, award-winning approach to transportation planning. It's really based on bottom-up decision-making, making sure that the local voice is heard in the decision-making process, that the needs that are lifted up and delivered are impactful to each region. Of course, for that to work, we really have to have great partners, and we are fortunate in Missouri to have terrific partners in our RPCs and our MPOs. These are the staff that really understand the needs and wants of their communities. They understand those needs that need to be lifted up and brought into the prioritization discussion. We really could not accomplish this without their help, and we are very thankful for them as well. Of course, we have a long-range transportation plan for Missouri that establishes the goal, kind of the guardrail that we're going to operate as we try to move transportation planning, transportation in Missouri forward. Those goals include maintaining the system and services that we have today, improving safety, and supporting projects that drive economic development and job creation, providing modal choices, and improving reliability, reducing congestion on the system. Those have been the guiding principles over the last several years. We are undertaking another effort to update the long-range transportation plan now. We have a consultant on board, Brittany O'Connor from my team is leading that effort. We anticipate that that would be hopefully accomplished in early 2026. Just a few months ago, I was able to present to you the high priority unfunded needs list for 2024. Through that, we identified $5.4 billion in regionally prioritized needs around the state, $5.1 billion in statewide and major bridge needs. In aggregate, that's a $10.5 billion or kind of a 10-year outlook of the annual needs that we know go unmet here in Missouri. That list feeds the STIP development process. It's kind of educates and informs as we go to have those conversations with our stakeholders and with our partners of what is important in each region. As we develop the STIP and we identify what funding is available, we may choose to prioritize work that comes off of that unfunded needs. And then that would create capacity and the cycle continues. So those two documents really kind of work in concert to help us understand the needs that are out there, understand what we're able to deliver, and then continue. Anytime we talk about the financial planning or the STIP, we like to talk about financial planning model. As Brenda just more eloquently than I mentioned, the financial planning model. It's our fiscal our approach to sound fiscal management here in Missouri. The financial forecast is a foundation of that planning model. It helps support the determination of the budget and ultimately what funds are available to the STIP. Once we have the funds available in each fiscal year, we're able to use the commission approved distribution formula to break down the funds available for our three main categories of programming: safety, asset management, and system improvement. The distribution formula includes a variety of factors that help us to determine and allocate the funds within each region, which allows us to create the programming targets for the district. The funding is put through those factors, and the funds available for each of those programming categories is available. It's always important to remember that we are an asset management first approach, that we have made that commitment, and that we're very fortunate to recognize that the long range transportation goal of maintaining system and service must be physically supported so that we're able to deliver on that goal. The breakdown of asset management is funded prior to those funds going to system improvement so that we can have those funds available that the district need to meet our performance targets on pavements and bridges. So what's next? There's no action for you today. With the presentation of the financial forecast, we're able to put together those targets. We'll be able to get those targets out to the districts. They'll start working in earnest on determining what they're able to include in this next round of the STIP. We anticipate bringing that back, having that all together and ready for May to being able to bring back to you so that we can present that to you and get it out for public comment. Again, I'm very thankful for the opportunity to talk about the work that we're doing, the hard work around the state, give some recognition for all those folks that work so diligently to be able to support the development of the STIP. And with that, I would answer any questions or concerns.
Thank you, Lance. Commissioner Hageman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lance, thank you very much for the update. Sure appreciate the work that you and your team do in helping us design where we need to go with the state of Missouri. Also appreciate our regional planning partners out there. You know, I have participated in that process locally for the past number of years, and really have a great appreciation for the ground up. You know, having local folks tell us what they see as the necessary projects and that's necessary needs in their area. I think it's a great model. It's a model that we need to continue to support and move out there, rather than a political model that just picks winners and losers out there just because they may have political power. And sometimes it doesn't, that's where you end up with the bridges to nowhere sometimes. So appreciate the local input. Thank you, regional partners who are in the room today for the effort you do there, and all the citizens that take time out of their lives to participate in that process. Certainly look forward to the draft STIP later this spring too, as you bring it forth, as you collect all this data. Thank you, Lance. Everything that your team does.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hageman. Anyone else? Director? Lance, you know, you and your team are behind the scenes, and Commissioner Hageman framed this nicely. To be able to deliver, it's vital that we have the planning process that we have, and it makes the delivery, once you get to that point, run very smoothly. So I can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing each and every day, your team, to ensure that we're prepared when it comes time to deliver. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Eric Kapinski, Improve I-70 Program Project Director, will provide an update on the Improve I-70 program. Eric, the floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, Chairman Boatwright, Commissioners, Director Hassinger. My name is Eric Kapinski. I'm the Improve I-70 Program Director with MoDOT, here to provide a brief update with where we stand with the Improve I-70 program. It's been over 25 years since MoDOT first started formally studying what do we do on I-70. In those past 25 years, there's been a number of concepts or ideas formed or thought through or developed, and it really all came down to one key area, and that is funding. And it really took the leadership and vision of our Governor Parsons, the key members of the House and Senate, to pass forward funding for I-70. And there's been a lot of discussion already today for the funding playbook, so I won't go into any more of the details, other than to say the important element that comes into play is how this is set up, where the money is transferred from GR over to MoDOT is really important for our contractors and consultants, that when we go to award that contract is certain, and those bidding partners know that money is guaranteed. So that's a really important element. I'll also add that MoDOT on an almost daily basis is looking to see how can we leverage these funds, these state-only funds of $2.8 billion. Brenda and Todd's team is looking daily at the federal level to how do we leverage this, and there's no one better to do that. And when we look at this, we're seeing our all-in budget of about $3.3 billion when we pull in other STIP projects, when we pull in our federal grant that we received, and that $2.8 billion. So we have an incredible opportunity, and we view I-70 to be fully funded, and we've hit the ground running. One of the first things that Director Hassinger and Chief Engineer Eric Schrader did was they said, how are we going to staff this? How are we going to deliver this program? And they took a look at some other states. And the general playbook is there's a lot of other states that have projects over $500 million from GR funds. And the playbook is pick one or two individuals, have them run the project, and support them with an army of consultants. And Ed and Eric chose to be a little bold and choose a different path. And they said, this is such a unique opportunity. We're going to have some of our additional resources dedicated to this with a record STIP. We're still going to try to staff as much of this internally as we can. So in total, we have a 23-person member team that we have staffed today that is working around the state along I-70 that's helping deliver these projects. And I'd really like to recognize them and their efforts. They came on board 18 months ago was when our team first came into play and funding was in place. But I really told them there's only one thing we know, and that is we don't have everything figured out, and it's going to take a whole heck of a lot of work. So the individuals that came on board have been working tirelessly day and night to help deliver I-70 and get our team in play. I think it's also important for me to recognize that in addition to our 23 dedicated team members, we have every division in every district that I call routinely and say, I need help. I need help quickly. Can you help us out? And without question, that one team effort that's been talked about a few times today comes through time and time again from our district leadership and our division leadership. It's also important to note that I-70 doesn't happen with just MoDOT. We have a three-legged stool, and our main partner that we need to keep in the loop and have a lot of approvals with is Federal Highway. So even though most of the funding for this is state-only funding, we rely on the Federal Highway Administration for their approvals. This is a federal interstate that has Department of Defense route, and there's a lot of approvals needed for us to keep moving. And on a daily basis, we're working with Federal Highway in a very proactive manner, and their collaboration, their ability to embrace flexibility is welcomed by us. We'd also like to acknowledge our industry partners. Early on, we challenged industry from the consultant side, the contractor side, said, get ready. This is going to be an aggressive schedule. And they far exceeded our expectations and are meeting the expectations for I-70. As we move forward with individual projects, in June of last year, we were able to hold a groundbreaking ceremony in Columbia to celebrate the culmination of our procurement effort and begin work on I-70. In late summer and into the fall, we began paving our third lane. So we have a 7-mile stretch in between Kingdom City and Columbia. And we've paved all 7 of those new additional lane for westbound. And we've turned the paver around and are ready to pave eastbound. So outside of Becky and her team, we're checking the weather about as closely as possible. And we're going to pave this additional 7 miles before spring breaks and really hit the ground running with this. So pretty much on any day that's good between now and December of this year, all throughout the year, we'll be paving pretty much around the clock on I-70 somewhere in some fashion is how our schedule's set up. We quickly then moved for our project and came to you as the commission in November, just a couple months ago, and awarded our Warrenton to Winsville project. It's important to kind of note or remind everybody on how we set up these projects is that we really leverage what work was already taking place with our existing STIP and pre-planning that took place. So this graphic shows projects that are indicated in our yellow, our orange, and our green. Those were previously programmed STIP projects, and those would have happened had I-70 not been funded. Thankfully, with the bold decision from our governor and elected officials, we're able to now combine those projects into one large project and also add the additional lane eastbound and westbound with the blue project, combining this into a $600 million project. This will be our largest project that MoDOT has ever done. And we're excited to award this project and really hit the ground running. One of the unique features is as we award these projects, in addition to adding the third lane, we're also seeing what other benefits can we get. I-70 in Missouri is one of the oldest interstates in the country. That pavement's at the end of its useful life. So if we're able to really replace that or, do some improvements to the existing lanes, that's welcomed. And for our first two projects, the first project being 20 miles, the second project being 19 miles, we're getting all brand new full depth pavement, which is welcome. As we engage with our local partners, I-70 has turned more into, they welcome the third lane being added each direction, but it's turned into, well, let's try to fix all the interchanges while we're there. We know we don't have the funding for that, but the interchanges we do make improvements to and have enhancements to, they're transformational for those communities and really a game changer. So we're excited now that we have a signed contract to really go share some of these more details for this project and really engage our local community again. And so I'm excited to share with you that weather pending, and again, we're hopeful that we're done with the snow for a while, but February 3rd and February 6th, we will have very large public meetings from the MoDOT side and the design build team side. We'll have about 25 to 30 members of our team there for the entire night that we welcome this open house style meeting where we're able to answer questions. You're really able to talk to the experts. So it's important before we begin construction that for every major project we're doing, we're going back to the community and re-engaging with them and connecting with them. We also will have a groundbreaking ceremony and we will begin construction. I've listed here early spring. I will emphasize that we're hopeful that that is very, very, very early in the spring as again, we're looking to hit the ground running. So as we look back for 2024, our team was able to award over $1 billion in contracts. As we look forward to 2025, we're again on pace to award approximately $1 billion in contracts. Today, our team is in Kansas City holding kickoff meetings with our industry partners for our next project. That will be from Blue Springs to Odessa. We have 5 shortlisted teams. We're excited to award that here in this room on May 7th for that exciting project. And there will be no rest for our team as we will then engage in our next procurement process, which will be from Columbia to the recently completed Roachport Bridge that we talked about earlier today as well. We also have a bid build project that we're looking to award at the end of the year, which will be from Boonville to Roachport. One of our key aspects that will make or break the success of our programs are public outreach. We began with a robust grassroots effort, as much grassroots as you can get for a 200-mile corridor. But we went and talked to a lot of the individuals, a lot of the businesses, a lot of the farmers along the corridor. And this is a very popular project. It surprised me on how welcoming everybody is of this project. And I think the key aspect to note is I think a lot of our everyday citizen really appreciates the innovative financing for this. Over the years, there was a lot of different financing options teased out there or introduced, but how this was thread the needle from the governor and the elected officials is welcomed by the general public. We continue to engage with the public. We continue to engage with our industry partners. We've had over 7 industry specific meetings. We will have another one in March, and we continue to meet almost daily with individual contractors, consultants, public. The other key aspect I will point is that there are a lot of cities and counties that have come to us after we award a project and said, this is great, but we want to do a little tweak here or there, and we have funding of our own that we will bring to the table. So try not to leave anyone out, but we've engaged with the City of Columbia, the Chamber of Commerce for Columbia, Kingdom City, Boonville, City of Boonville. Then over on the Project 2 side, we've started talks with St. Charles County, Warren County, and City of Wright City. So these are all individuals that are extremely busy, and we have a very tight window to thread the needle. And they've said, this is fantastic. We would like to enhance the project even more. So that collaboration, that grassroots effort is really critical to our project as we move forward. In closing, my last 2 slides, I get asked regularly from Director Hassinger what keeps me up at night. Without question, it's this. Our work zone safety of the traveling public, the respect being shown from our everyday citizens driving through is mostly very positive. But our 1% that is acting disrespectful, that's acting impaired, that's speeding through the work zone, it's at an all-time high of disrespect. So we're going to re-engage with our law enforcement partners and really try to step up our efforts. We're also talking with some other states that are doing some innovative approaches to really ensure our workers are safe. But all these pictures that are listed here or shown here, These are pictures I personally took over the last 3 years on projects we had. If you pay close attention, you can zoom in a little bit and see there's work zones just inside these or outside these where we have cones, people staged throughout here. So it is critical for me that we keep our workers safe as we build I-70 and make progress across the state. Ending on a little more positive note, I think it's important to understand that I-70 is a jobs program. For our first 2 projects, we will have over 3 million hours worked that will take place just for our labor force. That is hourly people that are pouring concrete, asphalt, building bridges, bringing material. That doesn't include engineering or the MoDOT side. And we have a lot of women and men that will gain critical real world experience and be ready to continue rebuilding America with future projects as well. So that development's critical. The picture that I'd like to point out is the one in the middle. That's our very first shift that we had on I-70. I went out there and met with that crew. And there's like 14 of those individuals in that picture. And they were getting ready to start. I said, you guys are going to be the first ones that really worked on I-70. This is historic. It's important to know. What's really unique is they're all from the state. But when I got to talk with them, they're from 4 of our different districts. And they said, we're really excited that we're going to be working nights for the next 3.5 years in challenging conditions that we just looked at, but we get to stay in our state. We don't have to go to Arizona. We don't have to go to Colorado. We get to stay here local. We're a short drive away. And so I think to me, that's really important. And we're going to really help try to highlight some of the story and some of the great work being done from our contracting and consultant community. That's all I had for a quick update. I didn't know if there's any questions or comments.
Thank you, Eric. Excellent job. Questions, comments?
Thank you so much for the update and the people. Impressive presentation.
Commissioner, thank you, Commissioner Slade. Commissioner Hageman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eric, one of the things I do want to emphasize, I do appreciate the outreach with the local communities and engaging with them and getting their buy-in and hearing what their concerns that might come up that we can address early on instead of like building it and then somebody comes in with a concern. That's very important, as you said. I, as one who engages with the public regularly, really appreciate that. Thank you for you and your team's effort in doing that.
I have one comment before you slip away. So I think it's important to put into context what all's happened here with I-70 and this general revenue funding. You know, the program that Eric is over was the size of the STIP when I first came in, which is, you know, you start thinking about that. That's a big ask for you and the 23 team members that you have. Kudos to Eric, the director, Ed, for the approach that we take on design build, on taking our young workforce like Eric, letting them be able to step up to the plate, learn, lead, and really develop our next generation of leadership in this organization. So the point that you made on the bold move that they made, that is bold. You know, the easy button would have been to hire consultants and to take the approach that other states have taken. But these guys are thinking about the future. They're investing in the folks that we have within the organization, and those folks that have been invested in are delivering. And that is so important. You know, I think the biggest challenge that we're going to have is from industry not cherry picking our best and our brightest, because I've said it over and over again. We have a world-class team here in Missouri. We have leadership in this state that is willing to invest and that has the confidence that we can deliver. And then we have the team on the ground that is flat delivering. So I can't thank you enough, Eric, for what you and your team are doing. And it's absolutely historic and so proud of you. So thank you.
Appreciate your support.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Director.
So I think the key thing that you take away is what Eric said. 18 months ago, we had no idea that we were even going to be able to have this funding. And we got a little ahead of the game, and we were talking about how we're going to do it. And I'm just going to tell you, leadership matters.
Yes.
Eric has done a fabulous job, and the team he's put in place has done a fabulous job. The story that I'll tell you that I think is kind of interesting is I was talking to the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Columbia. And he said, it's not very often that somebody comes in and tells you that I'm going to inconvenience your life for 3 years and they get a standing ovation. So Eric was talking to the chamber group of 100 people. And I think that just shows you how much the pent-up demand is for us to do this project. Because he was talking about, hey, we're going to be messing with your life for 3 years. And everybody stood up and applauded. So the team's doing great. And we've made a commitment to the commission and to the legislature to give periodic updates throughout the life of the project. And we're going to continue to do that.
That's great. Thank you, Director. Thank you again, Eric. Moving on to the next agenda item, it's a non-action item. Aaron Hubbard, Motor Carrier Services Director, will provide an update on motor carrier services. Aaron, what was your sir?
Thanks, sir. Morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Director, Madam Secretary. It's my privilege to be here today and to present on behalf of Motor Carrier Services Division. As you know, our division is a little unique compared to the rest of MoDOT. People readily associate our department with roads and bridges, but I think few have that familiarity with our regulatory oversight over the trucking industry. So we appreciate the opportunity to come in here today and talk to you all, maybe expose a little bit of our business, increase awareness of what we do, and to share some of our organizational performance with you. Before diving into our current business, I want to provide just some context as to how our division evolved into what it is today. Prior to 2002, Motor Carrier Services' single function was the issuance of oversized and overweight permits. By executive order in February of that year, the functions of several agencies were consolidated into a centralized one-stop shop to increase access and efficiency of service. Today, we're an amalgamation of those duties and serve as a single point of contact for the transportation industry. The centralized customer service model has proven to be extremely successful, offers a great convenience to the nearly 20,000 commercial trucking companies that conduct business with our office annually. Functionally, the division performs several mission-critical tasks. We issue credentials and permits for commercial carriers through our Compliance Communications Center, and we oversee the enforcement of state and federal regulations through our Safety and Compliance team. The credentialing team operates an extremely busy customer contact center. All Missouri-based trucking companies who need special apportioned license plates to travel in other states, and those who must file an excise fuel tax return, must complete their transactions with our office. Likewise, carriers from all over the nation who need to obtain a transport, who need to transport an oversized or overweight load on Missouri's highway, must obtain a permit for travel from our team. The Safety and Compliance team is charged with improving the safe operation of commercial vehicles traveling on Missouri's roadways. Every new carrier domiciled in the state is required to participate in an educational safety audit conducted by this group. Established companies whose roadside performance or other metric indicates a safety risk are investigated and corrective action managed. In coordination with other partners in law enforcement, these employees serve as part of the frontline multidisciplinary team that improves roadway safety for all motorists. Last year, the Compliance Communications Center team processed over 125,000 transactions, issued 160,000 oversized overweight permits, and registered over 65,000 commercial vehicles. The Safety and Compliance team conducted over 1,000 federal safety audits, completed over 1,100 vehicle inspections, and investigated 264 at-risk motor carriers. Our customers really rely heavily on the expertise of our staff to provide program guidance and assistance. Errors can result in costly delays roadside for truck drivers, so we take great pride in providing accurate, timely information. While we strive for peak production, we understand that output must always be balanced with measurable quality of service. Every month, we survey 1,200 carriers who recently conducted business with our office. In addition to our customers describing their experience, we invite them to provide suggestions for improvements and process changes. Obtaining this customer feedback is invaluable as we strive to adapt to an ever-changing industry. In 2023, we closed the year with an overall satisfaction rating of 92.3%. Through the first 3 quarters of 2024, 94.8% respondents have reported a positive interaction with our group. It is important to consider the business of motor carriers when looking at these numbers. While our primary objective is to educate, assist, and to advocate, we must also enforce regulations, assess penalties, and when warranted, place non-compliant carriers out of service. It would be reasonable to expect some friction given this relationship dynamic. But our customer feedback consistently acknowledges their appreciation for our efforts. I can't speak to the harmony between industry and the regulatory bodies of other states, but I can attest that in Missouri, motor carrier services is considered an asset to the success of many businesses. An integral component of our high customer service ratings is the effective management of our phone queue. In 2023, we handled over 120,000 inbound phone calls with an average hold time of 2 minutes and 9 seconds. Through November of this year, the wait time has decreased to 1 minute and 1 second. This performance, November of this year, actually it's November last year. I prepared this several months ago, actually. It's decreased to 1 minute, 1 second. This performance is exceptional and has become the hallmark by which motor carrier services distinguishes itself from all other call centers, public and private. Before moving on to the next slide, I do want to draw attention to the 2022 data here, highlighted in red for a reason. While this year does appear to mark a significant decline in customer service, and by most measures it certainly was, this is one of those times where data really fails to tell the whole story. In the history of MCS, this year easily marked the most challenging for our operations. Post-pandemic staffing shortages, historically high turnover, the implementation of a new electronic business system for our external users, and the seismic growth, market growth of carriers entering the industry stretched our limited resources. Overall performance certainly suffered at many levels, but the resiliency of our team shined through. While statistically the data may suggest this year to be our worst, I would argue that considering the magnitude of all the hardships presented, it may have been our finest. We're certainly thankful that operations have normalized. I'm sure Ed and the government relations team is too. But I want to specifically discuss this year to highlight our team's effort during this extremely difficult time. One of the most unique characteristics of motor carrier services is our role as a revenue generator within the department. I could have easily started with this one because this is what most people want to talk about, but we're here now. We've been affectionately referred to over the years as Retail MoDOT, given our physical and online storefront presence. With every transaction we complete, the division contributes to the total road fund balance available to the department. Over $117 million deposited fiscal year 2020. In that fiscal year, Missouri-based carriers licensed through the International Fuel Tax Agreement, that's roughly a population of 8,500 carriers, travel nearly 900 million miles in the state. Trucking companies similarly licensed in other states accounted for an additional 3 billion miles traveled. Even with the softened transportation economy approaching 2 years of surplus capacity, mileage and vehicle registrations in the state remain very strong. I do want to clarify that this data only applies to the qualified mileage of vehicles licensed by Motor Carrier Services Office. It does not include the mileage of the 100,000 plus commercial vehicles, those being the trucks that are registered by our friends at the Department of Revenue that rarely leave the state. As you can see in the data, collection and deposits have consistently grown. Over the previous 5 years, collections have increased 8%, while deposits have increased nearly 15%. While this historic performance is exciting, I do need to meter some of the energy and optimism because we're currently experiencing the plateau of that explosive growth. However, based on unit registration and interstate mileage, we are confident in the stability of Missouri's trucking industry and anticipate slower yet proportional growth to continue into the future. So this infographic really begs the question: what in the world happens to the $90 million, right? If you look at the collections versus deposits, there's historically about $90 million difference there. Under the International Registration Plan and International Fuel Tax Agreement, the Motor Carrier Services Division collects and distributes the fees of Missouri-based carriers to other states that those trucking companies operate in. In turn, those states collect user fees from their domicile carriers that operate in Missouri and transmit those fees back to us. The netting formula is admittedly a bit complex, but it is a reliable model that has been in operation since Missouri joined as an original pilot state half a century ago. Aside from the $207 million in user fees collected, Motor Carrier Services also plays a crucial role in the preservation of the department's federal funding. Every year, the division submits a state enforcement plan to the Federal Highway Administration that details the resources and activities committed to safeguarding our infrastructure. Failure to execute this plan and certify performance can result in a penalty withholding of 10% of Missouri's federal aid apportionment. Much of the success behind executing this plan centers on the performance of our safety partners at the Missouri State Highway Patrol, as I mentioned earlier. Not just great partners in emergency management, but also in preserving our infrastructure here. Through a memorandum of understanding, they operate the commission-owned weigh stations and provide the necessary enforcement presence. It's a relationship that predates our obligation to certify a state enforcement plan, with our oldest agreement on file memorialized all the way back in 1978. So we've been at it for a while with them. In 2023, the patrol weighed over 500,000 commercial vehicles, performed over 44,000 vehicle inspections, and detected nearly 3,000 oversized, overweight vehicle violations at our weigh stations. Complementary to the patrol's efforts, our electronic pre-clearance providers provided mainline way and motion screening for another 12 million trucks traversing the state. Motor carrier services primarily contributes to this effort, aside from the draft of the state enforcement plan, to the issues of our oversized load permits. All loads exceeding legal limit or legal dimensions or weight are evaluated thoroughly and routed accordingly. Posted bridges, roadway geometrics, work zones, and vertical clearance issues are carefully reviewed to ensure safe travel. This coordination ensures freight mobility on the system and is a critical function for supporting emergency response, disaster recovery, and national defense advanced planning. I spoke briefly on our relationship with Missouri State Highway Patrol. I want to take a moment here to recognize the other outstanding partners we regularly engage with. These industry leaders and enforcement experts work closely with MCS and each other to support safe, efficient movement of goods and promote the economic vitality of the state. This visual certainly is not exhaustive. Although all of our partners aren't represented on the slide here, I want to stress that their contributions are no less significant. It takes a commitment to keep this industry operating at a high capacity. Every piece of paper, phone call, and email we process has a human being and a livelihood attached. You'll find these words displayed prominently on the wall of Motor Carrier Services Office as a reminder of our duty to serve. Philosophically, it underscores our role as both an administrative authority as well as an industry advocate. It reflects the purpose of our work and humanizes our customer beyond their account. While we don't process many paper applications these days, the spirit lives on with every electronic transaction we complete. I want to close today by recognizing the 79 incredible staff of Motor Carrier Services team. They're a great group that shares an unwavering commitment to supporting the safety and success of this industry. Again, many thanks for this opportunity to showcase the division. If there are any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Update. And the work that your team does to do what you're all supposed to be doing, and that is serving the public and making sure that they get the service they need and have the proper attention. Yeah. So I want to thank you and your team, bro.
Got a great team.
Any other questions, comments? Director?
You know, I think this is one of those little known things that we do in the department, and Aaron does a really good job because most of our divisions and districts deliver service and are customer focused. And it's not that they're not, but they have that dual role you mentioned. They're regulators. So to be in the regulation and inspection business and also providing service to the private sector is a delicate balance. And I would say Aaron does that about as well as anybody does. And he is the only part of MoDOT that actually generates revenue. So he has a unique role in the department, and we appreciate that.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you again, Aaron. Appreciate it. Okay, next item on the agenda is a non-action item that will be introduced by the director.
So if the commission remembers, and I'll have them put up the slide, the first one, if we could. There you go. So in February, we had a conversation with the commission about access to the highway system. And one of the services that MoDOT provides is to manage the access to our highway system. And every year we get about 1,400 requests for that. So that ranges from an individual saying, I want a driveway to build a new house, to building a new interchange on an interstate highway system. That's the range of requests we get. Out of that 1,400, about 260 of those are commercial access requests. And many times also between the commercial access request, there is also a request to purchase any excess right-of-way we have as a part of that development. So really the presentation we gave you in February kind of goes hand in hand with what we want to talk about today with how the excess property process works. And if you look at the numbers, 260 commercial driveway permits every year, 300 requests for excess right-of-way. They don't always line up and go together, but many times they do. And it's really our role to make sure that the access is consistent, that it's safe, that we don't inconvenience folks on the system. And the people that do that, we have dedicated folks of both in our permits office and in our right-of-way department that really this is what they do all the time. And Brenda Harris is our assistant over right-of-way design and the subject matter expert. So I wanted her to kind of talk about the excess portion of this operation we do. And I also want to note that we've asked others that are involved in this from the private sector, from the economic development world, to join us today. Certainly, if they have any comments, we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to do that after Brenda is done. So I think I specifically do want to recognize our DD director is here, Michelle Hadaway. So Michelle, thanks for joining us today.
And Brandon Atchison's also.
Oh, that's right. Okay, with MHTC, right? Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Brenda, the floor is yours.
Thank you and good morning, Chairman Boatwright, Commissioners, Director Hassinger, Madam Secretary. I appreciate this opportunity to bring a high-level oversight to our excess property management process. Realty asset is also known as excess property management, which involves the disposal and control of commission-owned property and leaseholds. The goal of the realty asset management is to retain a minimal number of excess properties while only relinquishing property that is no longer needed for the operation of the state highway system. The perimeters of this pursuit covered within state and federal laws includes revised statutes of Missouri at 227.290, the Code of Federal Regulations under Title 23, Part 710, the Missouri Coalition, MoDOT Commission Policy, and MoDOT's Policy and Procedures. While state statute purports to grant responsibility to the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the management of MoDOT's excess property disposal, the statute also provides the option and discretion to convey any land at no cost to any other federal, state, or local government entity for their own public roadway and operation systems. Why? Because the commission purchased these properties with road funds and as such are constitutionally prohibited from diverting those funds from the stated purpose, which is roadway system. The statute also includes reference that excess lands will not be conveyed for less than fair market value to any governmental local agency for the purpose of capital gain or development opportunities that fall outside of the classification of public road system. Federal Highway agrees that MoDOT cannot give away excess property due to language within this Code of Federal Regulations, which establishes perimeters for conveyances, relinquishments, and leaseholds, stating current fair market value must be charged for the use or disposal of real property interest for those real property interests were obtained with Title 23 United States Codes funding. Exceptions to this requirement must be submitted to Federal Highway in writing for consideration and approval. Roles and responsibility for the realty asset disposal process involves MoDOT district right-of-way staff who are designated to manage the realty side of the department with assistance and guidance from central office right-of-way. These teams do an amazing job. The decision to sell realty owned by the commission lies solely within the discretion of the commission and MoDOT. As outlined within state statute, if realty is no longer needed for the operation of highway systems, it can be sold or exchanged for approximate fair market value, with those proceeds returning to the state road fund. The creation of excess property can be as a result of a project or redesign of an existing route. MoDOT has two criteria for excess property: standalone and assemblage. If a property can stand alone, it can be marketed for sale to the general public. In the event it is only available for assemblage, MoDOT can offer to sell it to the adjoining landowner. I'll go into more detail on this later on in my presentation. Once a customer request is received and the district reviews and approves moving forward with the sale, the engineering policy guide specifies all steps within the disposal process, including procedures for the valuation methodology, legal opinion for ownership, survey requirements, sales agreement, environmental review, access management, utility impacts, and commission approval, and finally, the closing of the sale. All associated information is retained for record retention and potential audit purposes as the law and policies define. On an annual statewide average, as Ed indicated, the districts receive approximately 300 customer requests to sell commission-owned properties. The districts make a determination on whether the requested property can be sold and is considered excessive to the needs of the highway system. MoDOT staff acts as listing and sales agent, transaction coordinator, inspector, title company, and creates all associated documents to finalize the sale of excess property. However, because resources are stretched and in short supply, the majority of the requests provide the customer the opportunity to obtain the appraisal and professional land survey, or both. This is in an effort to speed up the conveyance process. At this time, MoDOT unfortunately does not have the available staff to prepare the appraisal and survey needed, as the same team members are also delivering our SIP. There are several types of excess property classifications, each involving their own unique processes and procedures as defined in law. If I could direct your attention to the pictures on the slide, the top left is considered a change in route and an assemblage to a property that was a former Route 136 in Atchison County. The new route was built to the south of the old roadway, leaving a strip of land that could only be available to sale to the adjoining property owner who requested that. Once it was assembled, he marketed to Dollar General, where now they have a new Dollar General in Atchison County. The second example is the top right. This demonstrates an excess property that became available after a request to chip away from existing right-of-way. The requester assembled this piece of property to their existing lot, increasing their parking. The bottom right is an example of a former MoDOT facility, no longer needed as it is considered a standalone parcel. It was marketed and sold on the open market and awarded to the highest bidder. Prior to the sale, a plan for access management was disclosed during advertisement. Ultimately, the purchaser installed a number of well-managed access points. And the final example I have is in the bottom right. It's a large project that fixed sloping, added outer roads, and intersection improvements, leaving a standalone property within the new outer roads that was marketed and sold to the highest bidder. Again, access management ahead of time was defined, and this prevented any further access issues after a future development began. District staff do a great job mitigating future situations prior to selling excess property. Want to touch a little bit on how these properties are valued. Valuing excess property or determining fair market value is outlined and established in state statute and the CFR, or Code of Federal Regulations. These options are these have two options. A, excess parcels that are non-standalone used for assemblage to an adjoining property will be valued using across the fence calculations, taking on the value of the adjoining property. And secondly, standalone excess parcels are marketed and sold through an open public sale to determine fair market value first. MoDOT utilizes good faith awareness practices for these types of sales by using a public auction service, competitive bid process, and several other news platforms. The law states all realty asset must be valued using the following assumptions: that the Highway Commission has full fee interest, that parcels can be developed or marketed for its highest and best use, and that parcels will be marketed to a party expected to pay the full appraised value or fair market value. Now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how non-standalone and standalone parcels are valued. Valuing non-standalone excess property that will be assembled to the adjoining land must have consideration to the size, shape, location, utility, access, and in some cases, physical characteristics such as slope, grade, elevation, and drainage. must be considered as these characteristics relate to the contributory value of the assembled property, meaning the excess property is to be combined with another adjacent property and therefore takes on the highest and best use of its value. The photos on the slide demonstrate two different types of assemblage. The top was a former roadway prior to its development as a Dollar General. The appraiser, however, considered it as agriculture until after the fact, when now it's obviously commercial. The bottom photo is a good example of a chip away. It's part of the existing right-of-way. It's not advertised for sale. However, requester asked if MoDOT could consider selling a portion of the existing right-of-way, which we did. And now it took on the adjoining land value, and it's an urgent care. Standalone realty are parcels large enough to have physical characteristics that allow them to be freestanding and appraised individually using sales data to determine the highest and best use. Historically, MoDOT receives above fair market value for standalone parcels as they are in high demand. Standalone realty is generally developed and has a high probability of involving a traffic access plan prior to any sale approval in an effort to mitigate traffic flow issues and develop for the potential development in the future. Benefits of selling excess. MoDOT recognizes our role in actively managing commission-owned assets and ensures the citizens of Missouri are getting the best return for their hard-earned tax dollars. As I mentioned, the disposal of excess property or realty asset management is strictly governed by federal and state law. Operating outside of the requirements could jeopardize the department's ability to utilize federal dollars on MoDOT's projects and operations. Over the last decade, MoDOT has conveyed 1,008 excess properties, which resulted in $43.4 million returning to the state road fund. The sale of these properties has assisted local government in returning taxable land dollars to the tax rolls and in some instances boosting economic development to the area. That concludes my presentation. Can I have any questions?
Brenda, thank you. Questions or comments for Brenda?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
I can. Floor is yours, sir.
Okay, I can just barely hear you, but thank you, Brenda, for the detailed discussion to educate myself and the public on this asset management. You've really helped me out a lot, and it's always important to protect the taxpayers' investment in these properties. And I just appreciate it. It's a good presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Hurd?
Yeah, thank you. This is doesn't get a lot of attention, but it's vitally important to our state because it's natural and understandable that communities where our highway network goes through have development objectives. And of course, we have the objective of keeping our highways safe and fluid so we don't have traffic jams because traffic jams aren't good for economic development either. And so it's good to know that we have so many people and so much resource dedicated to this natural issue. This is something you would expect to come up. It's also important to know that this process is governed by law. In a nutshell, I'm going to attempt to summarize this. I tend to think of things in summary, but in summary, this commission has the authority to dispose of surplus property once we deem it surplus, no longer needed. And that happens quite often, very often to support local community development, including retail, which isn't often thought of as economic development, but for that purpose. And so this happens quite often. And when it does, we have to follow the legal requirements. And as I understand them, where federal funds were involved, federal highway has requirements that we have to follow. And in both cases, the Missouri Constitution and state law has a process. And in short, we have to, where we deem a property surplus, we have to obtain fair market value as is determined by approved standards for appraisals. And appraisers, either ours or a contractor's appraisers, use those standards to go out and do an appraisal so that we meet the statutory and the federal requirement for fair market value. And that this process goes on all the time. Sometimes it produces a result where a project goes forward, and sometimes it produces a result where the economics don't work. And I think this is an important issue in our state that comes up a lot. And I'm grateful for the explanation today, because I think public education on this issue is important. The other thing I want to observe is that this department, this commission, has demonstrated its commitment to economic development time and time again. We have numbers of projects. Our cost share program and the investment in our highways alone are economic development. And so we are extremely attentive to economic development, and where it can be done legally under the prescriptions of the law that we're required to comply with, we've done so. That's my perception of this, and I believe we're going to maybe hear from some others today and get other perspectives on this, but I believe that's the way we need to do it. And when presented with these, we as a courtesy to communities and developers, we need to be expeditious. We need to do it in a way where they get an answer quickly as possible, and with full disclosure of what the appraisal requirements are, so that they can make a decision whether to go forward or not based on those requirements. I think so long as we do that, we're being transparent and open to the public, and we're fulfilling both our duty to grow the economy for the future, but at the same time in a way that doesn't put the motoring public at risk for safety or cause traffic delays. And I commend you for the work that you did today, educating me and the commission and the public on that. Thank you very much.
Very well said, Commissioner Erdman. Very well.
Thank you again, Brenda. Appreciate it. I'm going to deviate a little bit here. Brandon Atchison, I'd like to go ahead and call you up and give you the opportunity. He is the Executive Director of the Missouri Economic Development Council to discuss a little further on this topic. Before he starts to speak, I also did know that Luke Reed is in the room, which he's walking out right now. I called him about the time he was walking out. He's with the Missouri Chamber. He's a face that we know in this room. So Luke, thank you for being here today. Oh, yeah, and of course, yes, Miss Michelle, thank you for being here today. And Brandon, the floor is yours, sir.
All right. Well, good afternoon, Chairman Boatwright, Commissioners, Director Hassinger. Thank you for having me today to speak. My name is Brandon Atchison, the Executive Director with the Missouri Economic Development Council. Just give a little background on the organization is. The Missouri Economic Development Council has been around since 1979, supporting economic development professionals and community leaders. We believe that the infrastructure is imperative to communities, businesses, and the entire state. It's a big draw for this state here. Economic developers work with businesses, including assisting with all aspects of locating in our communities, from helping to locate land, work on local zoning procedures, having them fill out incentive paperwork, understanding their workforce needs, and more important here, we're discussing today is putting them in direct contact with MoDOT districts and learning who they need to speak with in regards to gaining access to the transportation network, which is a huge deal. Local economic developers try to assist throughout the entire location process or expansion process because they know if the companies succeed, their communities succeed, which is a huge deal. Two programs, as mentioned just a little bit earlier, related to transportation that are vitally important to economic development projects are the Governor's Cost Share, as well as the Economic Development Cost Share programs. These need to be maintained and enhanced whenever possible. One aspect, and this is going to kind of go back to the tying into the access and all that, is economic development is an ever-changing industry. We all kind of see it with a lot of different industries. But one thing that's really taken place over the past few years is the actual growth to market. There's a constant accelerated need there where companies want to move, they want to move quick, and they want to go to market pretty quickly. And in doing so, we want to make sure that we as economic development professionals are providing them opportunities, making them aware of the process procedures that take place. Any ability to increase these speeds and help communities and economic developers work with them is always welcome. Additionally, also knowing how economic developers can expedite this process is appreciated. I know sometimes things can get tied up. It's kind of a high demand. saw those numbers earlier, 1,400 requests in a year. That's quite a bit. You kind of break those down, just trying to make sure that you go through that process of procedure, reading them, understanding the needs of the wants of the community is trying to access those points. I just want to let you know, MHTC, we're dedicated to collaborating with MoDOT on further discussions on economic development and transportation issues, and welcome the opportunity to kind of work on that side. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Brandon. Any questions for Brandon? Commissioner Hickman?
Brandon, thank you. And I appreciate you let some scurious folks join your organization as well. So like utility people that part-time economic development, being folks, that's me. One of the things, the cost share. So we recently have decreased the amount of money we put into the cost share because we would have been building some fund balances on that. I want you to be very aware that we are very supportive of the cost share. And when our communities engage and utilize those funds again, we will very much be interested in putting money back in there to fully fund the cost share programs. We also didn't want to build fund balances when we've got projects out there that could utilize the funds. But so don't take that wrong. Very supportive of, I think all the commissioners are very supportive of the cost share. I love it. I love it when we can work with our communities and engage and leverage our dollars to get something that's done and bring jobs to our communities. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you for all the work that you do. You do wonderful stuff along with the Department of Economic Development. Just really appreciate what you do.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Hageman, thank you for making that point. You know, the action that we took last month take effect in 2028. We see a change. We're going to be quick to respond to that change. And honestly, I think that we're going to see that change because coming out of the COVID years and the federal funds that have been coming in, I think that's going to dry up. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to leverage local dollars with the cost share program. So just keep us apprised and keep that line of communication open. Appreciate what you're doing. Appreciate what you're doing, Ms. Michelle. And Luke's gone, but appreciate everything he's doing as well. And thank you for taking time to be here today.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd say that's the biggest thing is collaboration and partnership. So most definitely whatever we can do to be kind of, help answer questions and kind of drive those conversations. Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move into our public comment period. Members of the public who did not schedule a presentation before the commission may speak to the commission on transportation related issues by having signed in at the registration desk by 9:30 a.m. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person and 10 minutes per topic. And I don't have to ask because I've already been provided these. So first up, we have Nancy Veith to talk about speed limit in Lone Elm, Missouri. So ma'am, the floor is yours. And it looks like you have a few folks with you. We have David Munsell, George Monk, and can't read the writing here. Yeah, Charlie. Welcome.
I'm Nancy.
Okay.
Commissioner Charlie. There is concern about the speed limit at small unincorporated. It sits in Cooper County, and I want to apologize. Everything in the envelope I attempted to send to you guys before Christmas because I wanted you to have this information ahead of time. Found out yesterday it didn't go through. So it's like I just told Jennifer, old people, new technology don't always, But anyway, with her help, we've got everything there. So if you want to look at page 2 of the letter, it says that the county commission may set the speed limit in an unincorporated area, blah, 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 with the approval of Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission. And that's why we're here, is to get your approval. MoDOT has done a test, a study, and I know they have strict guidelines, and I appreciate it. They have massive guidelines. But we feel that we need to reduce that speed. We have a school in this small community. And according to ODOT's study report, we have 55.5% of vehicles going through are in excess of the speed limit by as much as 5 to 30 miles. And this is frightening. It's a very active community. I've attached some pictures there. We have an activity center, a community center that hosts a lot of activities throughout the year. And you can see pictures from the parking lot. It's full. It's packed with vehicles. And those vehicles are not there for 2 or 3 hours. We have people coming constantly throughout some of these activities. And when I first started on this quest, I obtained signatures on a petition. And this is pages and pages of individuals who are supporting this lower speed limit in Lonell. And these are parents and grandparents of kids that go to school there. They're residents that live there. But we also have the commissioners, state representative, our current state representative, Jim Taylor, supports this very much, but of course he couldn't be here today. The county sheriff, Chris Class, our Cooper County sheriff. And I have also a signature on here of a retired highway patrol officer who believes this needs to be reduced. And also I have the signature of Keith Bale, who is our Cooper County Circuit Court judge. We just strongly believe this needs to be reduced. It for years and years, when I was growing up in the area, it was 45 miles an hour. I left in the late 70s and just recently came back recently, about 10 or 12 years ago, came back home. And it had changed. Now, I don't know when it changed. And I have to admit that in my letter in the second paragraph, it says in recent years, it was raised to 55. I can't really say because I can't find out when it's changed. But I would like for you, gentlemen, all the commissioners, to read this and take a serious look at it. I think I've outlined everything in here that I need to draw your attention to. I know you've not had a chance to look at it, but do you guys?
George Monk, presiding commissioner. So we had some meetings with some representatives from ODOT. They talked about traffic flow in the area. I'm really sensitive to traffic flow because I'm talking to the EMA director, Mayor Boonville, and our expansion of I-70 is these two individuals pretty excited because currently our EMA director has to oftentimes loop around and back on the opposite direction crossover to get there or struggle down that shoulder. And then the Mayor Boonville, when there's an event on the I-70, a portion of the 40,000 vehicles travel through Cooper County, go through Boonville, shut down with the economy for 2 or 3, 4 hours. If you look at this section of Lone Elm, the section is 0.6 miles. If we reduce the speed limit by 10 miles per hour, it's going to add 9 seconds to a commute. And I think most people would take that 9 seconds for the additional safety that would happen there. Also, we haven't just gone through the budgetary process, a little sensitive to cost. MoDOT has offered that they could put in 2 of the yellow flashing lights at $10,000. So it would be $20,000 for a small community. MoDOT would have to spend some expense to put those in terms of labor, equipment, and machinery. As presiding commissioner, we have access to speed limit signs. I'm sure our guys would be willing to put those in at no cost to MoDOT. So, thank you.
My name is Charlie Melchman. I was the Eastern District Commissioner. I served 2 terms, and that ended 12/31. Nancy was kind enough to present to us, and we had great discussion regarding this. Lone Elm is in my area, and I've been very familiar with Lone Elm throughout my whole life. The reduction or the increase from 45 to 55, I do believe, seriously contributes to potential safety issues, such as the school is growing in that area, the community center. My encouragement is read the information that Nancy has put together I believe it is a good case for reevaluating this situation and lowering that. The school is a great necessity because there's a playground out that parallels the highway itself. Take a good look at that. There's an extension further out of town somewhat is the actual fire department. There's a lot of traffic that goes through there, farming traffic, slow traffic, Amish traffic, and et cetera, that contribute to some of these issues as well too. And if you take a look at the actual data on the traffic itself, you see some people that are traveling through that area as high as 80 miles per hour as well too, which I think Sheriff Class and Highway Patrol can take quickly good care of those issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners, for allowing us to present this. I'm Dave Munsell. I'm a termed out state representative, and want to emphasize that I support the material that you got in front of you. The existing state representative, Tim Taylor, could not be here. He's over at the Capitol right now. And he wanted me to express his full support of this recommendation and everything. Listening to some of the other reports today, seems like I heard several times emphasis on safety. And of course, Cooper County was my home county and went through Lone Elm very, very often. State Representative Tim Taylor lives just a few miles from there and goes by there, I think, just about every day. And I have witnessed excessive speeds through that particular area, and have heard of multiple near misses of accidents in this particular area. On the map that you shows, it shows the school just right down short distance, maybe a couple hundred yards, is a huge church, and they meet, of course, every Sunday, and several meetings during the week and everything, and it's a very, very large congregation. In the other direction, just shortly down the road to the north, is this rural fire department, fire station, and there is also a helicopter pad there, which won't affect it, but shows the emphasis of this particular area. And right next to that is, I think it's an MFA business that has trucks going in and out of there all the time. It is a rural area. There's a lot of semis going in and out of this area. So it's a very, very critical area, and I would highly respectfully ask the commission and the director to look at this and consider. I know state statute is worded a certain way and everything, but sometimes interpretation of that statute on this particular situation, maybe with the idea of safety involved here, it's probably the critical thing here. Thank you for listening to us, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, guys. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I'm assuming, looking at the map, that the intersection of KK and B is a two-way stop.
Yes.
With KK, you stop on KK, but there's no stop on B, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And just looking at this, the church is at the B location? Yeah. Yeah, okay, got it. Okay. And currently, the understanding is that the speed limit through this intersection is 55, and it's for it to be.
Yeah, or lower.
Has the county commission taken any official action? Yes, if the county commission, just your testimony today signifies the county commission support.
We had, we were guided that we could absolutely
No, I
support
know
this.
that. I'm trying to ascertain the position of the county.
100% in favor of this.
Okay. Good, thank you. Two, four.
Yes.
Back to this.
The map that I have provided for you there, does it have two tabs
It
with
does.
arrows on it? I want to briefly tell you what that explains. At the bottom of the page, which would be the south end of Lonell. Lonell sign is actually with each other. In fact, the first house you're going south apparently is not even considered in Lonell because the Lonell sign. And the same is almost true on the north end of town. And when I talked with the engineers, they said there would be no problem moving those signs because I've noticed a lot of small unincorporated areas. The signing is a good distance. I mean, I'm not good at judging feet, but at least 100 feet before you actually get into the community. And that was another issue I would like to address, which apparently, according to the engineers, would not.
Very well.
If there's any questions on that, this last time, kind of sketched out. Locations. She emphasized those signs and there's no sign placed there. Many. The, they have. Another thing I might emphasize, look at this, where the fire station and that main facility isn't just past school. Right after you go past that, I think the speed limit on that curve is 45 miles. So, I mean, we see people zooming. They're mainly because this stretch of highway, it's a straight stretch, and there is no way some of these traffic violators there at 75 and 80, if they did see a little kid running on the highway for a ball. I'm sorry. Speaking of running out for a ball, in the highway, there's no way they can get stopped. Sure. So death and accidents is a very, very critical situation in this particular area. So I just wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Could you make us a copy of that sketch that he has there? That we have? The only other thing that I wanted to mention is, or ask the question of, and I've been alluding to this, but on the enforcement side, that's the portion that really makes the difference on, because, I'm looking at this and we're showing that folks are exceeding the speed limit by 5 to 30 mile an hour. By all at once putting a sign there to 45, that's not going to change those habits. So is there any commitment from the county for enforcement in this area, or what's?
Well, I do believe that because the county sheriff, Chris Class, supports this very much. I do believe, and I think I mentioned at the end of the letter, that with the help of the highway patrol and the county sheriff patrolling this area, assuming that we reduce the speed limit,
yes,
I think if they patrol it heavily early on after this change, that maybe it will discipline people. I grew up there and I was gone for 35 years or so. And I didn't realize when I moved back up here that they had raised that speed limit because I was in the habit.
Of course. Yeah, that makes total sense.
And I do want to point out that the entrance to the school.
Yes.
And this is mentioned in the letter, but for southbound traffic, the entrance to the school is in a blind spot with a distance of about 300 feet.
Okay.
And we've had concerns, people going to activities there at the school, if they happen to be going southbound and stopped waiting to pull into the
Yes.
school. One gentleman told me he was the second car in line. And all he could do was sit there and watch his rear because he knew nobody could see him. So that's our.
Well, thank you so much for coming today. I mean, to me, it means a lot to have folks that take time out of their day to come and discuss these issues. That open communication and letting the commission know when problems exist is really important. So thank you so much. Okay, so our next public comment period is Arnie AC, Anastasia Dinoff. A face that we certainly recognize. Good to see you, sir. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Arnie C. AC Dinoff, State Public Advocate. First of all, I'd like to say Happy New Year to everybody, and I look forward to a lot of great activities and good road projects for 2025 that are transparent, accountable, and responsible. I want to say to our snow fighters throughout the state and all the districts that we owe them a great gratitude and thank you. They've been gone for their families, gone from removing snow removal in their own neighborhoods and subdivisions to help us as motorists. It's been a trying 2 days. Just coming up here from St. Charles County, there's still a lot of work ahead of those workers and a lot of sleepless days and nights. The safety of the employees should be the number one factor here. We don't want to have any deaths or injuries, and especially the motorists. And they need to heed and slow down and make sure they're driving acceptable and responsible. There's a lot of clearing of right lanes that needs to be done, exit ramps, entrance ramps that I've seen coming through several counties to the Capitol. And it's kind of dicey. Last night, just because of inability of some drivers, they ended up on top of snowdrifts. And I don't know exactly how that happened or why that happened. And so my prayers go out to our state workers. There's two questions and one request to the commission that I have. And the first question is who is the MoDOT Deputy Director? Has that appointment been made? And who is that person? The second question is who will be the new commission secretary? As I heard on your website that Pam Harlan is going to be the new legislative director working with the Missouri House of Representatives in the Senate. And the third issue is I heard right away in possible purchases and making accommodations to sell property for economic development needs and needs of the community. At the last O'Fallon Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on January 2nd, last Thursday, there's a need for parking development on Missouri Double D in Caledonia, which is just south of I-64. And there's some land there and they would like to go through MoDOT. And the comment through the developer was, well, it takes years and years and act with the state legislature to get anything passed. And so I would ask staff to work with this developer because this critical economic development needs to go through and they need appropriate parking to meet the city's code requirement. Early in the meeting this morning, the director stated Pam Harlan's instrumental in creation of the electronic commission meeting packets. And as you all know, I've been praying for that for years to get the commission to post them publicly 7 days before the commission meeting so the public can interact and testify appropriately. Making the commission packets easily accessible. Accessibility is currently for central staff, division directors, and managers only. And the public is left out. And that's where I have a problem. Public is left in the dark, kept at bay, and have been for decades. Transparency goes a long way with 6 commissioners. You're one of the very last state agencies, state boards, and state commissions. And I've never experienced this type of issue with all the governments that I testify, the Missouri House and Missouri Senate, our county commissions. There's a lot of governmental entities that put thousands of pages of documents for the public to go through, research, and understand and read. But for some reason, this commission fails to do that. And transparency goes a long way. This makes it difficult and hard to hold you accountable and responsible to 6.2 Missourians in utmost transparency. I'm pushing and respectfully asking the commission once again to change your rules and ways of doing business and do the right thing. Post your meeting packets, which you all get electronically. It'd be no extra cost to the public or to the secretary or her 3 staff members that are paid for by taxpayers, and release all commission meeting packets, supporting documents, communications. Why is this such a fight? Why is this such a task? And why do I have to keep pounding on this with the commission every so often? Why do I have to plead with you? I'm a citizen just like you. I want the best for our state. And I'm asking you, let's change the culture. Let's change the thinking and do the right thing here and be fully transparent with decisions and contracts. You have closed meetings, but when I make a request, I never get a response from Ms. Harlan or from the legal counsel of what those closed sessions, what the decisions were made. And you have an obligation within 72 hours to make those public to Missourians. You are the top state government spender with taxpayer dollars with billions in expenditure. At the federal, state, county, municipal, and special road district, and with road and gas taxes, along with user fees that we heard today. Under Chapter 610.022, I'm hereby, as allowed by law, verbally asking for the secretary for December 2004 commission meeting packet in the January 2025 commission meeting packet. The only thing that's accessible to me is your agenda without the supporting documents. Let's put Missourians first over politics, political theater, power, and control. Let's at February's commission meeting post on the commission's website 7 days before the commission meetings the same packet of information and supporting documents, bids, contracts, and communication that you get as commissioners. Remember, Missourians, this is Missourian State Transportation Commission. The commission and department controls a lot of public monies, and we as Missourians need to hold you 100% accountable. You owe 100% transparency without holding any secrets, Mr. Chairman. Each segment of I-70 expansion, safety enhancements, and upgrades are $1 or more billion dollars, and that needs scrutiny from the public. Let me repeat, each segment of I-70 is $1+ billion. Please, Commission, direct the Commission Secretary and her staff to release publicly on the website all Commission meeting packets without withholding valuable public information. Let's start off with a great 2025, and that starts with responsibility and transparency to 6.2 million Missourians. Commissioner Hageman, you're a state senator. All the information is on the website of the state senate. I asked staff for the information. I don't get any hesitation or any pushback. Here, I get all kinds of pushback, and I'm still waiting from the legal counsel to fully fulfill my request in July of this year for a commission meeting that I've gotten bits and pieces. And it's getting to the point where it's ridiculous. It's political theater. I really don't want to go to court and ask a judge to give you a court order to give me the information. It's cut and dry what the law says. Mr. Hageman, state senate, our state believes in transparency. The law is there, working with state legislatures to make it more friendly for taxpayers and the public. And I ask you to be open to the suggestion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll entertain any questions if you have them.
I don't have any questions, just to comment on a couple of things. So on the first item that was announced earlier today, Chief Engineer and Deputy Director is Eric Schroeder. Commission Secretary, that is a position that's out and that we're going to interview for next week.
Okay.
So that will be over the next couple of months, that position will be filled.
Okay.
And on the O'Fallon situation, it's one of the reasons we brought this up today on excess property management is so that folks know what the process is to go through. We don't have the staff to on a request, and the way that I look at it is if somebody outside is putting a piece of property, they come to MoDOT and request it. The thing that we can do on our end to expedite it, since we don't have the staff to do that with the workload that we have on the construction side, is to give the opportunity for an outside appraisal as long as we have guidelines set. That shortens that time period so we don't have situations to where it's 3 or 4 or 5 years before an answer is made. So that is certainly on the radar of the commission. And so I would just recommend whoever the developer is in that case is to start that conversation, likely with the engineer of that district to get the process rolling. But thank you for being here today. Appreciate your perspective on things and your travel. My gosh, you're traveling all over the state. So thanks so much.
Thank you, and I look forward to working with you. If there's anything that I can do to make our commission, our department better, please reach out and let me know. It's not about negativity. It's about doing the right thing for Missourians. And that's what I believe and ask you to do. You have the control. Secretary works for you. You have the control to direct the direction and policy of this commission. Thank you for hearing me out.
Yeah, thank you again. Okay, so typically at the end of each meeting, provide commission members the opportunity to share comments and concerns. So around the table, Mr. Smith, I'm gonna go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. It's been a good meeting. Sorry I wasn't there today, but due to weather, I wasn't able to make it. I want to echo what we talked about earlier and thank all these MoDOT workers for all the hard work that they've done the last 3 days to make our 4 days to make our roads safe. They've worked hard on it, starting even Friday pre-treating. Appreciate all their hard work, all the team at MoDOT. It's exciting to hear that fatalities were down a little bit in 2025. Till that number gets to zero, none of us, you guys I'm looking at or myself or Commissioner Baker will be happy. So just got to keep working on that stuff. So anyway, that's about all I got. Good meeting. Good job. Thank you. Travel safe. Remember, buckle up, on down.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Slay.
I cannot hear anything he's saying. Is his mic on?
From a planning standpoint, sure that traveling public is as safe as they can be under the circumstances and to keep the economy in Missouri moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Slay. Commissioner Hagman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. Also want to echo the fine work that our road crews have been doing. Drove down here 2 days after a big storm, and by golly, the roads were just pretty good coming down already. Had some opportunities to do some little bit of snow cover still on some of them at that time. I fully anticipate them being gone as I travel home this afternoon. But really, I want to thank because I came through the North Missouri territory, so I want to thank particularly the Northeast District and the Northwest District, as well as the Central District as I came on into Jeff City here. Fine work. Thank you very much. It was always great to be associated with just fine, hardworking folks too. Also want to thank our economic development folks for showing up and participating today, giving us some input. We really look forward to working with you on making the state of Missouri a great place to live, work, and play. And we are a transportation hub, as Roy Blunt has said numerous times. We are a transportation hub in the state of the United States. So transportation is very important to our economic development here. So thank you for coming today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Heckman. Commissioner Baker.
Yes, I would echo many of the comments previously made, but there's been a tremendous amount of information shared today, and the expertise and effort that goes into that is not unnoticed. We are embarking on an enormous capital project, which is very, very significant to our future. But the ability for the department to flex in an emergency situation with the weather the past few days, to be able to balance both is remarkable to me. And thanks go out to everyone who makes that possible on all fronts of what the department does for the traveling public and for the citizens of Missouri. It is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Commissioner Baker. Vice Chair Erdman.
Yeah, thanks. Well, it's a new year and there are many things to be excited about, lots of opportunities. The legislature is going in 15 minutes, and we look forward to working closely with them. We have a tremendous working relationship, and believe me, this commission understands. They expect us to execute on the projects that they have funded, and we're going to do that. We're not going to miss a beat. We're going to do that. We have a new governor who will be inaugurated on Monday. We're all excited about that, and we look forward to working closely with the new governor. He's a former member of this commission, so he understands very well the importance of an independent commission to provide continuity and stability for Missouri's highway projects. And we look forward to working with Governor-elect Kehoe. The new year also brings to us some new faces here at MoDOT. Welcome all. We're so fortunate to have all of you, even in the new positions. Brings us a new director. Thank you, Ed, for serving the people of Missouri in this new capacity. It's vitally important that we have you here because of your experience. And I want to thank you for your participation in the AGC conference that you mentioned in your remarks. They are our indispensable ally. Everything we do is done in partnership with our stakeholders. On that, I want to thank you personally and on behalf of the commission for establishing the new Directors Advisory Committee Council. That, for those of you who don't know, the director has decided to establish a stakeholder council of individuals in the state, from industry, elected officials, local officials, planning officials, to be a Directors Advisory Council. I believe he intends to stand that up in February. It will be very representative of the entire state and all of its diversity, as well as the major stakeholders who we work with on a daily basis. I think that initiative by the director is centrally important to our work as a commission. He will be advised and benefit greatly from the input he gets from that council. And I want to thank you for taking that initiative. It's very important. With that, lots to look forward to, and we'll move ahead in the year. And I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Well, this group doesn't leave much on the bone to talk about. So just to echo everybody that traveled here today, Ellen, Sarah, thank you for being here. Appreciate everybody's time and efforts. To get to the point that we are in this state, it has taken a lot of people with the same goal in mind, which is for Missouri to win and have the infrastructure that we need for that to happen. And I just appreciate everybody in this room very much for the work that you do, for the time that you spend on our infrastructure, and to our team that's out in the field this week. So blessed for each and every one of you. It's going to be a tough week. This is, over my 4 years, we've talked about a statewide event, what that's going to look like, and this is the real test. And I honestly, Director, I didn't think that we would have another event behind that test, but it rains, it pours. So I feel confident with the team that we have that they're going to excel and get us through this tough week. But with that, got a couple items before we adjourn. I want to make note that our next meeting is scheduled for February 5th, 2025 here in Jeff City. And with that, Mr. Smith, I need you on the ready.
I'm ready.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Sign. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Warren thought he was going to get that today, didn't he? Thank you, Mr.